Here we are. It's 9 o'clock. I guess we'll call this meeting to order. If you'd stand with me, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and followed by prayer if you could remain standing. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Pastor Lee Smith from Solid Rock Church will lead us in the prayer this morning.
I want to base my prayer this morning off of Exodus 18:21, where Jethro was helping Moses set up the first government, and I think it's applicable to us today. It says, "Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, to place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of 10." Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I do pray that these men here and our government all across the nation, from federal to state to local, could be able people, people that have sharp minds, that are caring about what they're doing, and that they would be men and women that fear you, that love you and want to serve you and want to do what's right in your eyes. I pray they'd be men and women of truth, not lying, not hiding things, and those that hate covetousness, those that would not make decisions for their own financial gain, but would do it for the good of the nation, for the good of the people. Lord, I pray for the wisdom for these men here today, not only for today, but for throughout their term, that they may make wise decisions that honor you and honor the freedoms we have in this country. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. welcome to all the mayors in Reno County that are here. Thank you for being here this morning. So we got a house full of them. Welcome to everyone else as well. If you're here for public comment this morning at this time, if you'd like to speak, we'll entertain that. We'd ask you to keep it to 5 minutes. And then I'd also ask you, if you're here for public comment, to not comment on solar until we're through that item today. Maybe we'll take that at a later time. But anybody here have anything they want to? You might state your name and who you are.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Aubrey Abbott Patterson. I'm the President and CEO of Hutchinson Community Foundation. Our mission is to inspire philanthropy, leadership, and collaboration to strengthen Reno County. And today I'm here to talk to you about the Love Where You Live Community Empowerment Initiative. This initiative is a 3-year one to provide Reno County communities with data and a process that will empower residents to make positive change and boost community pride. The process centers residents' perceptions, dialogue, and collaborative action. And we know from a Knight Foundation study that when people feel more attached, they are more likely to invest in their community, take care of it, and look out for others. They will welcome others and help others feel connected too. We want to catalyze that and see more of it. We are working with innovation economy partners on this initiative. They have worked with over 50 communities across the country on rural prosperity strategies, and they are currently working with McPherson County Community Foundation and Western Kansas Community Foundation as well. This summer, we asked residents across the county to take the Love Where You Live survey, asking them about their perceptions. How do they feel about where they live? What do they find special? Who are their admired leaders, both formal and informal leadership? What is their sense of ownership and belief in the future of their community? What issues are they paying attention to, and what metrics will tell them that their community is making progress? Innovation Economy Partners is currently creating a benchmarking report and platform of the data, plus other community data for 7 communities across Reno County and then the county as a whole. 722 people in Hutchinson took the survey, and a total of 1,021 took the survey overall, and they tell us that's a great turnout compared to what they've seen in other communities. The next step is to host community workshops. We have workshops coming up in those communities across the county in the next couple of weeks. I'd invite you to go to the Community Foundation's Facebook page or to renosurvey.com to see those dates, locations, and times, and to attend and be involved. I'd invite each of you to do that for your own communities, any other communities you're interested in, and also I'd ask you to help us get the word out and to encourage people to attend the workshops. That's where we think we'll see true collaborative action begin to take shape. The next phase for the Community Foundation is in grant making. In early 2025, we hope to see more applications coming to the Fund for Reno County from communities and organizations that are working to make progress on the identified priorities for the specific communities. We want to marshal our resources toward those priorities as are stated by the people living in the places. And we also want to try to inspire other funders to look at those priorities too and make those their priorities and how they use their funding. In 2025 and 2026, we're going to do this process all over again. Survey, workshops, come and talk to you in public comment about it. And we hope to see some progress, both in terms of the metrics that people have said that are important to them, but also in the way that they feel about their communities, their connectedness, their belonging, their sense of ownership and place. So again, I'd like to ask you to attend workshops. We have one in South Hutch and another in Haven coming up quickly, but we have them across the county, 4 of them in Hutchinson in the next couple of weeks, and I'd love to see each of you at least one of those workshops, and again, to help us encourage others to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have the dates on those? I just got to ask by chance.
I don't.
Okay.
But you received an email from Carrie Mayu listing them, and I'd like to say again that anybody who wants to know can go to renosurvey.com and find all of the dates, locations, and times. Okay. I'm sorry that I don't have them.
No, that's okay.
At the tip of my tongue right now.
I know that Haven's the 16th, and there's one in Hutch at the Nature Center, I think
Thank you, Seth. He says Haven on the 16th and Dillon Nature Center on the 24th. So thank you for that.
And what about Tom?
6 to 7:30.
Good job, Seth. 6 to 7:30.
Well, I seen the email, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that way the public hears it.
Yes, thank you
So
for
if
that.
they're listening,
Thanks.
so, yeah. All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. Deborah Tufel with the Hutchinson Reno County Chamber of Commerce. And I am on the agenda later, but an agenda item, or an item that's not on your agenda, is that next Tuesday, the Chamber is hosting a candidate forum at Hutchinson Community College Stringer Fine Arts Center, and it starts at 5:30 p.m. We will begin with the candidate forum for the county commission seats, 2 of the contested races, and then we will close with the state House and Senate seats that are up for election in this upcoming general election. So we just want to make sure the public is invited to attend, you're encouraged to attend, and we look forward to hosting that so that we can have a more informed voter base when they make the decisions on these important offices. So thank you for your support.
Very good, thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes. Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, gentlemen. Doug Smith, the City of Arlington. It was brought up at our last meeting, council meeting, that we've been trying to bring animals into the animal shelter, but each time we call or you try to bring them, I know the shelter's full right now, but they're telling them to take it to Pratt or either Great Kingman, and I'd just like to know why. I know you guys can't answer that, but it kind of defeats the purpose of having an animal shelter when we can't use it.
The animal shelter is actually a city function, not a county function in Reno County. So that would be a question for the city of Hutchinson, not for Reno County.
Or
We can follow up with them. We can reach out to the city for you and find out what their answer is, but it's not, this governing body doesn't control the animal shelter in Hutchinson.
okay, but when we look at the thing, it says Reno County Animal Shelter, and that's what, you know. So we figured it was had access to it, but I understand what you're saying.
I'll look into it and I'll reach back out to you.
I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor, appreciate it. Yes. Oh. You want some?
Yeah, I'd like to comment.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, our family ran into the same problem several years ago. And that's what we were told also, that with a dog bite issue, it's a city run, the county. And I've run into other problems with dog issues, and the sheriff's department will tell you that in the county, we have no facility. It's a city-run facility, and I've got told the same thing, sir. So just want to let you know that it's been a long time. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, seeing none, we'll move a little on along. Is there any additions or revisions to the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move 6C off of the consent agenda. And then on item 7B, I don't know how the commission feels about moving this item, but I had asked for a copy of the contracts and the methodology that Make My Move used to give us the numbers they used, and I still have not received that information. And so I can't make a good decision without, actually having time to look over the contract. And so I didn't know if the commission would be interested in moving that to another meeting, or if we still want to discuss it and then.
Well, I think they're going to address some of those things, are they not, here today?
Yes, I forwarded your
In-depth
email to
questions.
Deborah, and I think she got with Make My Move, and they were going to be able to answer that today.
Okay.
A copy of the contract, I didn't have that, so, but that your questions were sent yesterday, so
Okay.
they are here today to discuss that.
Yeah, because I very much had some of the same kind of questions as well, so. 6C, yeah, I wanted to pull that originally, yeah, and that'd be a good time to stop and talk about additions, revisions, and there was some changes to that policy a little bit. I guess you guys got that in front of you. Is that what you want to address, or there was some small changes to that? in revising that. from
Yeah, I
what-
just
from what
had
it
some
was.
questions, and with it being in the consent agenda, it wasn't appropriate to ask them. So I don't think it'll take too long, though.
I'll stick that. It's pretty time-sensitive stuff that we're doing. I know there's some follow-up with that has to happen at the state level, and so and Helen's here to talk about some stuff. If you want to address it, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe it'd put your mind at ease and we could go forward with it. I don't know. Go ahead, Helen.
Good morning. Did you have some specific questions that you wanted to ask pertaining to the motor safety policy?
Yeah, so I guess the my big concern was what people do in their own vehicles, even if they're on county business, and whether it's proper for us to regulate what they're doing in their own vehicles.
So the answer to that is that if they are doing things that are county business in their personal vehicle, such as they're running to the post office or they're running from a building to a building in their personal motor vehicle, and they don't have access to a county-owned vehicle, they are still covered because they're under compensable time, so they're still covered under our work comp. Therefore, that's why they still need to follow this policy, because they are still covered under our work comp insurance.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another question along with that, I presume that applies to commissioners also.
That it would apply to salaried individuals as well, yes.
I just wanted to make sure I was correct on that, because we travel to meetings and so forth.
Yes, and none of the items in here are outside of what state law depicts. What the state statute says for texting and driving, using mobile devices, that is what's in this policy. So technically, you're already covered under the state for that policy.
So we better be a good example. That's the bottom line.
We count on you guys.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions that you may have?
John, does that put things to bed before we can go ahead and move that? You don't want to move it now? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it,
Thank
Helen.
you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on a consent agenda then? Seeing none, we got a motion to accept it. Motion by Commissioner Bogner, second.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Hurst. Any other comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Business items. 7A, resolution for the authorization of bonds by the Public Building Commission for the county shooting range and 2 fire station districts. Fire district stations, I said that backwards. Go ahead.
Good morning, Honorable
morning.
Chair and Commissioners. Kevin Cowan with Gilmore and Bell, the county's bond counsel. The resolution before you this morning is sort of step 2 in the process related to the issuance of bonds by the Public Building Commission for the shooting range and the fire district projects. And what it really does is direct the necessary steps to sell bonds and bring back to you and the Public Building Commission sale results in November. So step 1 was authorization of the projects and the bonds, and there's a process to that for the Public Building Commission, an intent resolution that was published that waded through a 30-day protest period. That is complete. So the authorization is complete, and this simply directs the exercise of that authority. We're authorized to do this. Please move forward. Raymond James, Greg Varnberg, some of you may remember, works with the county on their bond issues, is authorized to go market and sell those bonds. There's an offering document in the bond world that's called an official statement or a preliminary official statement that needs to be prepared. That's authorized. It has all the information about the county, the Public Building Commission, and the bonds and the projects. And so those are sort of the preliminary steps necessary to get the bonds sold. So if you adopt this resolution, County staff, I as bond counsel, Raymond James will take steps, prepare that document, get in the market, get a bond rating, get into the market in early November, and bring back sale results to you and the Public Building Commission on November 13th. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Would be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Any question? You get off easy.
I guess so.
questions.
Sounds like it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any further questions or comments from, no? Anybody want to entertain a motion to accept that?
I will so move.
Commissioner Weitzel, motion to accept that a second. Commissioner Bogner will second that. Further comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Moving right
Thank you.
along. Chamber of Commerce, make my move discussion, so you're up again.
Good morning again, Commissioners. So I'm standing here before you today on behalf of our county's Economic Development Partnership. As you know, our traditional economic development pillars include working to retain and expand existing companies in our community, recruitment of new business to the community, workforce development as one of the most important pillars of economic development these days in attracting and retaining our workforce and developing a workforce that's skilled and ready to go to work for local companies, and then community capacity building. The number one thing that our existing businesses have responded in business condition surveys over the last few years is how do we attract a workforce to Reno County? And recently, you had me come before you and give an opinion on a marketing opportunity that you were looking at with a PBS promotion. And we talked about that, and that opportunity wasn't something that we specifically were endorsing, but you asked us to come back with some ideas of other ways that we can promote Reno County and our communities as a place for the great quality of life that we have and how to get that message out. We had been engaged in a conversation with the company that will stand here before you in just a moment called Make My Move. They have a national platform for which communities are marketing themselves to people who are looking to move. And it's no secret that, people move every day, but how they find those communities, people are doing more searches on the internet for that kind of information. And Make My Move will tell you about how they founded their company based on that principle. If you open up that platform today, you'll see communities across the country that are marketing themselves in unique ways. But I thought this is probably the most direct way that we can recruit people to all corners of Reno County. You'll see a little bit of a demonstration of the platform and what it might look like. Some communities choose to market their county seat, for example. But we can also go so far as to develop community profiles for each of the communities across Reno County with unique offerings so that every corner of Reno County gets promoted in this. So the total cost to set up the platform is $90,000. It will then allow us to start relocating families to Reno County. Many of them are what I would call remote workers. They have to be qualified in showing that they are bringing their income from another location to this. There are background checks done on the individuals, and they bring with them families oftentimes, and those people add an economic impact to the county. And while I still firmly believe in our business recruitment and expansion model of expanding companies that are here and recruiting new, this program alone would have a direct, immediate impact because you can see the impact of people actually moving, which is one thing our companies locally say they need. So I've invited the CEO of Make My Move, Mike Rutz, and Tom Dobbin, who represent this product, and they'll give you all the details about how it works behind the scenes. But I would ask you to consider using part of your economic development reserve as an allocation this year to Greater Hutch to partner with you on this program. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Tom.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you all for having us to come out and talk to you today. I really do appreciate the time. I'll try to be brief because I know you guys have other business.
State your name and who you are.
Oh, my name is Michael Rutz. I'm the CEO of Make My Move. Okay. So we think of Make My Move as economic development, right? But instead of traditional economic development through companies, it's economic development through people. I mean, people really are, the powerhouses of economic development. Dollars flow through them that turn into tax dollars. They spend money in a community. They seed the community for future growth by having children and having spouses that work in the workforce. And so our business is basically based on what we believe is a new take on economic development, which is using, instead of recruiting companies, we're recruiting people. The traditional economic development model, I'm all with Deborah. I think it's a great model. I think communities need to be doing it. But I also think in an environment that we have today and that we're going to have for the next 30 or 40 years because of the demographic challenges that the whole country is facing, when you have more jobs than people, you have to kind of open up new fronts and new strategies in economic development. So our platform actually started right in the middle of the pandemic. And the reason it started was because we saw a bunch of communities, not a bunch, but several communities like Tulsa, Oklahoma, that were offering incentive packages or programming to attract people to come live and work in Tulsa, specifically remote workers. And those folks would end up relocating to Tulsa, and Tulsa would end up reaping all that economic benefit of those workers. We also saw an exploding population of remote workers. We went from 5 million remote workers to 60 million overnight, and today there's around 25 to 26 million full-time remote workers. They are geographic free agents. They're actually taking their jobs and they are relocating because instead of spending $5,000 on an 800 square foot apartment in Boston and dealing with all that stuff, they're looking for lower cost of living and they're looking for connection to community, which is what Reno County can offer. And so the way we work is we effectively help the communities develop a package, not necessarily an incentive package, but programming that helps people understand who that community is, what are the stories, who are the people, and really helps them see on-ramps to becoming part of the community. When these folks are moving somewhere and they see that the mayor might be willing to have coffee with them, or that they get a free membership to the Chamber of Commerce or free co-working space, things like that, they really see a community that is making an effort to welcome them and have them come live and work there. What my favorite story specifically is about a community in eastern Indiana, Greensburg, Indiana. It's a community of about 11,000 people, declining population, and the mayor wanted to do something about it. So he decided to do something with us, and they were one of our first clients. And we were sitting there talking with the mayor and his economic developer and a woman who runs the community foundation. And we started the conversation by going, okay, why would anybody want to move to Greensburg, Indiana? And they spent about 10 or 15 minutes talking about how it was 45 minutes from Indianapolis and 45 minutes from Cincinnati. And it was like a light bulb moment where we go, that's how you sell the Honda Motor Company, or a company. That's not how you sell to a family. A family wants to know, what's life going to be like on a Friday night? Who are my people going to be? What organizations can I get involved in? And so we've developed this marketplace. We have over 250 communities on our website. Our annual traffic exceeds 2 million people. And the advantage that we have, this is kind of that we offer our clients, is the folks that come to our website are highly qualified, highly targeted. They are coming to our website because they're interested in moving to a new community, right? So instead of you all having to go out and create a whole new marketing campaign and all these marketing assets and then deploy it on Facebook and trying to find your target market, we have it all built in on our website because they're already there. So the way we would work with Reno County is we would want to go out and understand what are the communities in Reno County, what are the stories and the people. And I know Seth has already done some advanced work and been out in the communities taking some photos and gotten some good video. And then we would merchandise that on the Make My Move website. We would generate a pipeline of applicants, and all those applicants, we would make sure we do a lot of the qualification work. So we make sure that they reach the income threshold, that they're actually relocating from somewhere outside of the county, just to make sure that everything checks out. And then we would work with the community to effectively recruit those families and turn them into new households. Here's what we care about the most, though, is delivering return on investment. We understand that these are taxpayer dollars and that you have to have demonstrable real return on investment. So the way we do that is we collect all this information from these folks. We get W-2s, we get mortgage statements or leases, we understand what their family composition is. We put all of that data and all that information into effectively a calculator. I think Councilor Weitzel, you had a question about where that data was coming from and how we calculate that number. We use a company called Implan, which is effectively the gold standard in economic development that economic developers use to actually calculate the economic development of economic development projects. So for instance, if you had a family that was making $100,000 a year in income, had 2 children and a spouse, we know exactly where they move, where they relocate to, we would be able to put all that information through the machine effectively, and it tells us how much new consumer spending you can expect, how much property tax revenue, how much income tax revenue, payroll tax revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So it gets really, really granular and detailed, and we're happy to provide that information for you. In fact, we're not happy to provide it. We do provide it because we know that's what you have to justify the investment that you're making in this program.
So the calculator, is it proprietary, or can we see the way it works?
No, we'll show you how it works. Absolutely. We share all that information with you. And just so you know, we pay a pretty penny for access to all that data in that calculator. So it does save you money, actually, because we're the ones paying for it, and it comes as part of the product. So, we guarantee our work. We will, the contract that we have has us relocating 10 families in the first year. This is a snowball. This is scalable. There's a lot of learning at first, right? We go out and we develop the marketing assets. We deploy them. We do a lot of coaching with folks in the community to help them understand how to interact with these people and engage these folks and welcome them and really talk to them and convert them and turn them into new residents. And then we typically see growth in the second and third years of the program to where it gets pretty big. And if you think about it, effectively, the demographic, there's some demographic data in there that you can see. Our average household in the state of Indiana, where we've relocated almost 1,500 people in the last 2 years, is $120,000. And the average household size is 2.5. 31% of them bring a spouse that ends up working for a local employer. And this is my favorite part. 53% of the folks that we relocated into Indiana relocated to a rural community that had declining population, right? These were communities that didn't have anything in their economic development pipeline. They're literally just kind of standing there going, okay, what are we doing? This is an alternative option for them to actually participate and actually do some economic development and also go out there and, increase population and seed the population for the future. And we deliver all kinds of data. We'll tell you how many impressions you got on the website, what your conversion rate is. We track the whole funnel, all the way down to where if someone applies and you make them an offer, what percentage of those accept the offer, what percentage of those actually end up relocating, and then we deliver all that data around the economic impact of the project as well.
Expound on the offer. We kind of went over that in the meeting, but expound on what you might offer somebody out of that program.
Oh gosh, there's a lot of different things. In fact,
some examples.
We were speaking with the chamber board yesterday. Oh, well, so the Greensburg, Indiana, the example I was talking about earlier, they wanted to recruit families because they had a dearth of population between the ages of 20 and 40. They didn't have any kids, and so the mayor's worried about the future. And the woman who runs the local community foundation said, hey, I've got a network of older folks who would love to babysit for these folks. And so we were like, that's awesome. We called it Grandparents on Demand, and they offered free babysitting services. We generated 2,200 applicants within 3 weeks for this community of 11,000 people in Indiana. Co-working space. Someone from the bank was sitting there in the chamber meeting yesterday. If the bank wants to offer $300 to put into a checking account if you open a checking account there. What we try to do is take, there's 2 things that these programs do. Number one is they attract people. It's a marketing hook. You get them there. But the second and the most important thing is they keep them here, right? So we like to do things around organizations. The Chamber of Commerce is perfect. There's all kinds of networking events and ways to connect folks within who have chamber memberships with one another. That's a great one because people love that. They want to be connected. They want to be able to make friends. One community offers advisory board seats on participating non-for-profits, right? So a lot of this is about giving them on-ramps to build relationships and really create roots and have impact on the community. That's our approach, and that's how we do it. And you guys are perfect for it. You know, the way we think of it, we probably have a countywide, you know, some type of programming or incentive for the county, and then each of the communities, if you can see there's a page in there that shows a mock-up of what it would look like. Each community could kind of offer their own stuff. It could be free cups of coffee. In Lincoln, Kansas, which has been a really successful program, we relocated 30 people to Lincoln, Kansas.
Well, that's a feat in itself.
Well, it is. I know. I'm very proud.
Stayed in a bed and breakfast
We
overnight in
we
Lincoln,
increased the
Kansas.
population of Lincoln, Kansas by 2% through our program. I'm serious. And you know what? It's a dozen farm fresh eggs, in addition to some other things. The local football team came and actually helped people move into their homes. So when they pull that U-Haul truck up, the local football team is out there helping them move their furniture. That's the stuff that works, and that's what people want. They want to be welcome. They want to be wanted. And so, you know, there's some art and some science to this, and we think we're getting pretty good at both of them. But Kelly Gurley, who is the program owner for the Lincoln, Kansas program, would be happy to speak to anybody if you have any questions about it. And we'll guarantee our work. You know, I mean, we try to de-risk this as much as possible. Again, we understand these are taxpayer dollars. We want to deliver ROI. Any questions?
I've got not a question, but I've brought this up several times over the past few years, and hasn't gotten anywhere. But I think it's time that we look at something a little bit different. And how much time have you spent in Reno County?
A lot. Tom, how many visits have you made?
3 visits here.
3 visits? Yeah, I believe this is either my second or third time. But one of my favorite parts of my job is I get to go places that I never ever would have gone otherwise, and it's awesome. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now. You know, a lot of communities we work with, there are people who don't believe that we can actually do what we say we're going to do for them. And then when they actually see applicants rolling in and they start to see movers relocate, they get excited, you know, and it really makes a difference. So
Have you been to Pretty Prairie and Arlington? And
I haven't. No. Nope.
then it's difficult to speak if you haven't been out in the county.
That's
No
why we would.
offense
That's
meant.
why. That's why
No
we.
offense meant, but.
Oh no, not at all. That's why we work with Seth in the chamber. The chamber is going to be the one that really has that local flavor. We're the platform
Okay.
for the chamber to go out and tell the stories. Like they're going to be able to go out and find those stories and really help tell it.
I just was curious.
Oh yeah, no, that's part of what yeah.
We'll make sure to drag Mike back here for the Pretty Prairie Rodeo for sure. No, one of the things that we wanted to do, and I hope you have the PowerPoint deck. Obviously, they're not going to build the product for us until we commit to funding. However, within this slide deck, they have created kind of a mock-up, and the reason they created the mock-up was to really show. And did you bring copies of the
They
deck?
have them, yeah.
They do.
It's in
Okay.
here, we got it.
Was to show that this isn't just going to promote just Reno County, just Hutchinson, to have each of those individual communities marketed. And then Seth Farley on our team has been out visiting communities. We did a video actually from Pretty Prairie Rodeo this summer. He's captured a lot of great footage. And so that every community can have their unique identity on here. So we're not just promoting the assets right here in Hutchinson, but we're getting out and we're showing that real quality of life that's happening at Carolyn's and at the rodeo. So Make My Move is the platform. I mean, we could not afford alone to market to each of the places where they're going to promote this on our behalf. But collectively, they understand the audience. They're marketing on the coast where people are realizing that cost of living is high insuring properties that are constantly in a storm zone is high. And people are really looking to where can they go that is safe, that has a great quality of life, where they can make an impact and get involved in community and feel a part of community. And I can't think of any place better than Hutchinson and Reno County, but you have to help them find it. And the platform Make My Move is what would help them find that
So,
unique
Deborah,
place.
if you're the liaison going out, I guess we had 6 months ago, maybe, I think it was, around how long ago it's been, we had the mayor's meeting. We had in South Hutch for a little bit. A lot of mayors there, and they showed an interest in this. Have you touched base, and we got several of them in the audience today, with them to see whether they would be on board with helping with this? If this is a move that we made to try to do something like this, I think there ought to be some participation from those towns at some level.
Well, I'm glad that some of the mayors are here today. I haven't touched base with them individually about this particular product. I think we wanted to kind of test the waters and see, is this something you're interested in? We start building this out. We want to make each of the offerings for each community very unique, and that's where the mayors will get involved and help us do that.
It's kind of what we talked about the other direction, but this is a lot more intense. But I guess that's my question. It's something we probably ought to come back and hear from them if they have a vested interest. We had Turon Mayor that has an interest in some kind of growth in that area.
Lauren and Seth, I know were out and visited in Turon, but I don't know if they met with the mayor.
I guess my question financially, if we're going to try to do something, they'd ought to be a partner with it.
The Turon mayor is my second cousin's husband.
Well, that happens here
That
a lot.
kind of gives you an idea.
Mayor Fast did meet with Mike and Tom, and I don't know if Mayor Fast cares to comment on his impression of how this might impact Hutchinson. I'd invite him to speak to that.
Well, I have lots of comments and am very supportive, and I'm glad you mentioned, Mr. Parks, about the mayor's meeting. And what I took away from that mayor's meeting was the smaller communities are wanting some kind of help with housing, with population growth. That was their biggest concern. Their little towns are dying. Yeah. And I wouldn't say Hutchinson's dying, but our growth is steady. I mean, we're not losing a lot over the last 25 years, thankfully, but I feel like a lot of this is happening organically, and I could only imagine if we're actually putting money into this and having somebody help us with bringing remote workers in, people that want a change of life. I mean, some of you may or may not know the lead attorney for the Student Affairs Division of USC lives in Hutchinson, Kansas. Chose to move here. He has some connections in the state, but he chose Hutchinson, Kansas. And I feel like this would be an answer to the other mayors and the issues that were brought up. I feel like this is a step in the right direction. You ask if we would partner as a city. I'm not sure how we would, but of course we would be supportive. And I would remind you that all of these towns are in Reno County. So, I'll do what I can to partner. I don't have the checkbook with me, but.
Can I offer some insight on how we?
Certainly, those are just some of my thoughts. I'd be very supportive of this. Randy, you and I met with Mike.
Right.
Met with Tom those 3 times.
Well, that's why I bring some of this up, so we can talk about it a little bit.
You bet.
Honestly, the best way for communities to participate is to help build the incentive, help build the package, right? It could be getting the local bank, like the local community bank or the local coffee shop, or maybe the mayor himself just going, hey, I'll have coffee with anyone who moves into the community. That's the kind of stuff that really moves the needle. And that's what we would need from the communities, is to kind of put their own unique little twist on.
That's why I wanted you to throw that out so they can hear that.
What they welcome. Yeah. So that's how we think about it.
I'll shut up. Any other comments?
Yes.
I know Don was trying to get in earlier. Do you still want to?
Well, it took care of itself. I was looking out there and seeing all the mayors out there, and I thought, well, what's your perspective? And the course of events kind of took care of my questions, but I'm still wondering. I know
there's a couple of them here. I wouldn't put them on
blue.
the spot, but do you have any insight into what you feel about this? I'd love to hear from you if you want to speak. Either one of the mayors, or there was 3 of them here.
Yeah, there was.
Well, that's good. We'd love to hear from
The
you.
city of Arlington again. Yeah, I would appreciate that because I myself, when I do help people move in, I help them move. I won't help them move out, but I help them move in. And
Fantastic.
I also tell them, hey, our city office set up a basket with gift cards from the vendors there in town, the businesses in town, Carolyn's, and I also offer the guys, hey, this is your first meal in town. I'll take you out to eat. And they also have free coffee at Carolyn's every day. Say, hey, you got somebody that want to move? Arlington's looking for it.
He's already got the package built. We just got to market it. You know, we just got to get some eyeballs on it.
Hey, I'm Seth. I do marketing for the chamber. So in the past couple weeks, I have personally gone out to all 17 communities in Reno County, and I've spent some time there. I have taken photos, I've taken video. If there's a restaurant, I've eaten at the restaurant. If there's shops, I've shopped at the shops. And what I can say in doing that is that there is not a community in Reno County that doesn't have something to offer someone. My favorite kind of thing that happened during these past couple of weeks is I know somebody who lives in Langdon, and this person said things like, why the heck are you going out to Turon? Why the heck are you going out to Langdon to take photos? What are you going to get out there? And then I showed her the photos, and she said, oh, wow. So there's just something for everybody. And my background is film and television. What I like about Make My Move is one of the most difficult things when you're putting together a movie, a commercial, music video, is like, where do you find your audience? Make My Move gives us an audience. And that's one of the hardest things that you can do. So that's it.
Commissioner Watson.
Okay, so it sounds like it might be a good thing, but one thing I've learned over my life is never trust the sales guy. Me being in sales myself, you never trust the sales guy. You always look at the contracts, you look at the data analytics, and you see if it makes sense for us. And so I'm always suspicious when I ask for information and I don't get it. So
We did not receive the email until last night.
okay.
So I'll have a contract in your inbox by the end of business today.
Okay.
We did not have that request until last night, so.
Okay, perfect. So that's all I'm saying is I need more information to make a decision. I need to go through the contract. I need to go through the methodology, just to make sure what we're getting is what
If you'd like
is
to-
representative.
If you'd like to have a conversation offline, I'd be happy to spend some time with you, virtual call or whatever.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate your time, and we will provide a copy of what that contract would look like. And I would think the contract will probably be with our Greater Hutch Division. And then, we work for you on all fronts of economic development. So this would just be another pillar of the work that we do with Reno County. But we'll provide a copy of what the contract would look like. It could be a three-way contract if you want it to be. And then a copy of that M-Plan model that they use. M-Plan is a very well-recognized economic return on investment model that is also expensive. We don't subscribe to it, but I'm glad that Make My Move can provide a copy of it to us. Usually when we do an economic impact analysis on a project, it measures the jobs and investment, the induced and direct jobs, so both the direct people moving here, but also the induced activity from that economic activity. And so I'm sure that is what M-Plan is using, but we'll provide a copy of whatever they can give us.
Okay, and also whatever contract people would sign to sign up for it as well. I would like a copy of that as well, if that's okay. Okay, perfect.
You mean a contract, I want to clarify, you mean like the people that actually apply?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I looked over the website and I didn't see it, and I didn't want to sign up because I didn't want to give you false. Yeah.
Fair enough. I
So.
understand what you're asking for.
Okay.
Commissioner Hurst?
How many people applied in 2024, and how many people moved? You have
Oh,
a
gosh.
rough estimate.
Well, I can use the
Can
state.
you come to the mic, please?
I I can use the state of Indiana as an example. In Indiana, we had 80,000 people in the last 2 years that have applied, and we had just under 600 actually relocate. So you're looking at a conversion rate of just under 1%. But when you look at the value of what the state, what the state spent in order to get those households, it is magnitudes better than what they're spending on traditional economic development. For every dollar that they're investing, they got $11. It paid for itself in year one.
And I do realize, I read through this, and to see what your applications are involved in, and they're pretty tough.
Oh,
Pretty
yeah.
tight.
No, I'm telling you,
vet very
we
well.
vet and qualify these people. We understand, you don't want to move felons into the city. You want to make sure that they actually are going to deliver that economic impact that they say they're going to deliver. So we're sticklers on that. Okay.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yeah, thanks for being here, guys. Two questions. One, the 90,000, is that an annual fee?
So the 90,000 this is the initial contract. They actually gave us a package that would have relocated more than 10 households. But because we're kind of viewing this as a trial run, we didn't want to overcommit. If once we fulfill the 10, there would be another fee to continue to remain on the platform for, let's say, the next 10 or 20 or however many that we want to commit to over the course of time. The overall cost is incrementally going to go down as we add more people and extend the contract for multiple years, because there is obviously some cost in the production value of getting us up and running on the platform. But there would be an ongoing cost if we would choose to remain on it beyond the first 10 households moved, yes.
So this is 90,000 for 10 households?
Yes, and so that's what this ROI is calculated on. I'm sure Mike could get us the numbers if we were to say we wanted to commit to 25 households moved. The overall cost is going to drop incrementally per mover if we committed to a larger number.
Okay. And then my second question kind of goes right into that. How do you know you're not claiming organic movement?
Well, for one, in the application process, we actually try to understand. We actually ask them questions about, do they have connections to the community? Why are they moving to the community? When are they planning on moving? I can tell you in Indiana and Kentucky and Lincoln and a few others, 60% of the people that apply have no prior connection to the community. So they're truly incremental. Because they have never visited, they don't know anyone in the community, there actually aren't connections there. 40% are. Do we know if they were going to move there or not? Some of them do, some of them don't. But we do know for sure that there's real incremental impact from these people, and we can vet them. You guys can kind of place whatever type of requirements or thresholds you want on these folks. If you would prefer, some communities actually want boomerangs. Right? So they're actually focusing on people who have connections to the community or used to move there. Some go, hey, we want people who have no connection to the community whatsoever.
But if we just asked them and said, hey, was your decision based on this app?
Yep.
And if they say no, do we have to pay you?
It depends on how you guys want to count them.
Okay. It seems like 9,000 homes pretty expensive, especially if we can't directly attribute it to your app.
I would say you can directly attribute it to the app, but 9,000 for a household, our average household is 2.3 and an average income of $115,000 is a bargain. When you think about the economic value that they're adding to the community, all the new spending that you're generating, all the new payroll taxes and income taxes, the property taxes, all of the taxes that they generate, all the new consumer spending, plus if they're bringing a spouse that works for a local employer, which they do 31% of the time, and they're bringing children that actually seed future growth 20, 30 years from now, and actually workforce growth, those kids might be the next electricians or the next plumbers, they may be the next bankers in the community. So I think 9,000 is actually a bargain. And if you look at traditional economic development, what people pay just to create a job, with all the capital investment that goes into recruiting companies and all the incentives that those companies get, you're typically looking at $15,000 to $20,000 per job. And those jobs are 80% of the time filled by someone who's already an existing taxpayer or an existing member of the community. These people are totally incremental, new revenue streams for the city and the county.
Well, yeah, if you can guarantee that and you can show that
We can.
your app was directly associated with, and then we would like 10 households is not material here in the county.
It's a start.
Like if we could pay $1 million and get 1,000 households, that sounds great. But all this effort for 10 households it's not clicking for me.
So I was actually speaking with them at coffee this morning. 10 is small, right? It's a start though. You got to build the muscle. You got to build the marketing muscle. You got to build the recruiting muscle, which a lot of communities don't have and don't know how to do. This is a scalable thing. So, year 2 would be bigger than 10, we would assume, significantly bigger.
Well, that's my question. If you can do 10, why can't we do 1,000?
Well, let me think about it this way. That's a 10-person company. We're basically doing the work to relocate a 10-person company
But it
into
doesn't make
Reno
a difference.
County.
Like,
No, I know, but I'm saying it's a 10-person company with an average income of over $100,000. So there's no other economic development program or play where you could attract a 10-person company with an average income of over $100,000 and have them be totally incremental to the county's tax base and the county's population and only pay $90,000.
Well, I'm not saying this isn't unique and innovative. I think it is. I think we really need to make sure that we're actually getting return and we're not just double counting organic growth. And I think you're hearing my other point. It's like this needs to be material. It doesn't feel like we're moving the needle at 10 homes.
My question would be, is there an application fee that people that are interested, do they pay an application? So they apply, but the only way they get the incentives is going through your system.
That's absolutely right.
So that's, I think, how it shows they're only moving here because of this is.
Well, that's not true, because if I was moving, I would love to get the extra incentives, and I'm going to do that.
You'll hear the story. You'll hear the stories.
How do you qualify whether they're already coming and they're just getting bonus incentives?
Maybe the best way for me to maybe this is a conversation we take offline, and I could actually organize a call with Kelly Gurley over in Lincoln, and she could actually, she'd be happy to speak with any of you, but she could tell you some of the stories of the families that she's gotten, and how they truly are incremental. They weren't going to move to Lincoln, they were not moving to Lincoln. We have ways to make sure that the people I understand what you're saying, that you want to make sure they're truly incremental. Mm-hmm. We have ways to do that.
Okay. As long as the contract says that, I'm not going to be too far.
Commissioner Friesen, I had a lot of the same questions, which is why I want to look at the contract and the methodology and go through it.
Mr. Friesen, I moved to Hutch this year, and Make My Move was completely not on my radar. So I was organic, but maybe if there was an incentive, I would have never known about an incentive.
I think we want to take all movers. We certainly have some organic growth of people who choose to move to Reno County because they have found it as a place and they probably had a connection here or they learned about us in some way. My point earlier maybe wasn't stated well enough, that imagine how much more successful we could be if we were deliberate in trying to find people who have never heard of us before, and we found a way to drop breadcrumbs to get them to find Reno County and try us on for size. The initial package that Make My Move pitched to us was probably 30 households moved, which might be more on par with a small company that we are helping grow, or the Haven Steel project that is expanding and adding 30 jobs over the next 5 years. It is a little bit more expensive to jump into a contract for a commitment for them to find us 30 movers. And so this was an effort to start small, not break the bank, test the waters, build the system, prove success, and then come back and rinse and repeat and do this time and time again. I don't want to, make a comparison to how we incentivize job growth here through company relocation, but we incentivize companies every day who are expanding onto their facilities, making a capital investment, providing a property tax incentive for that investment, providing a job performance grant of up to $1,500 per job from the city and the county. You start adding up all of those incentives, and the incentive to create jobs in local companies is probably about what you're going to spend for a contract to move someone who's relocating, but you didn't have to deliver infrastructure and you didn't deliver a property tax abatement to do it. So it kind of depends on how you view job growth, but you have challenged us time and again to figure out a way to help small communities grow. I can't bring a company to a small community if there is not a sizable building in that community to locate them to, or a site to build a new business on. But I can certainly relocate people to communities in homes that we grow incrementally. And so you challenged us to find some creative ways, and this was one way, and I encourage you to think about it as one way to bring people to Reno County. So thank you.
Well, I've been challenging that from day one. I wanted to see growth because there's been such a decline over my lifetime in this community of residents. And, and I've said this time and time again, I drive down the highway, you don't pass hardly anywhere but you don't see a sign. I went past the sign for Assyria the other day, said if you were going home to Assyria, you're home, turn here, that kind of thing. We don't see that around Reno County. We don't see it coming in and out of the county, the towns, any of that stuff to market us. So we do have to market ourselves somehow, but I don't know, I'm just saying that I've hollered for that for a long time. I don't know if this is the right fit or not, but I think we have to get out there if we're going to try.
I would argue from a marketing perspective, you will never get a better bang for your buck than what you're spending with us, because we have the most qualified audience, because we've aggregated all that demand onto our platform. So, in terms of targeting and like cost efficiency, it's the most efficient way to spend marketing dollars. But
well, I like the idea of testing the waters. If it has to be scalable.
Yeah.
And 10.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
It's like, I'm not a statistician, but it's in that realm of like, you will never know whether that did anything, right? Like, until we do hundreds, like this has to do hundreds for us to.
That's what we envision.
So it has to, I think that's the one thing I'd like to see when you come back is like, how does this scale to hundreds in an affordable way? And like, if we ask county administrator, right, if we think 9,000 a home is worth the investment, are you ready to spend $2 million to get 200 homes?
Well, to kind of answer that, first of all, we don't have $2 million in our budget, and but I think
why wouldn't you?
But
If
to
this
get
is
that
such-
many, if we built up our economic development reserve, it probably would be worth it. I think this was
right.
just-
They're saying this is a total ROI. You get complete ROI. So why wouldn't you put as much money into this if it produces incrementally new homes?
And the reason for this is because we wanted to start, and the chamber has not asked. I don't think is asking for the full 90,000 from Reno County. I think we're the first entity maybe to be asked in a public meeting, and going back kind of to the smaller municipalities or even the city of Hutch, Reno County does have that fund. We have economic development money set aside for these type of projects. Smaller cities usually don't have in their budgets extra money for what ifs that the county does. That's probably why Reno County has been asked to begin with to help cover for the small communities. And Commissioner Friesen, as it grows after the first 10, if we do this, my guess would be that Deborah and Make My Move would be coming back and say, this was great. We did this in the first 6 months. We need 100 more next year and and keep expanding it. And yes, it would be worth the investment on the return on the ROI at 8.38 is a great return. And I think the data that Make My Move has will show that it is because of the program.
I'm kind of just hearing a lot of what ifs and concerns and stuff. For me personally, I think I'm hearing that the board would like to have a little more information. And certainly Mr. White's would like to see some contracts. And I think we ought to all see that so we can look it over.
Absolutely.
I'll come back. I don't think this is anything impulsive we have to decide today, but I think
we've heard it all. We've heard all this before in other venues. So
I'm sure you have. But
we're happy to answer those whatever questions you have.
And for the five of us, we don't answer to you.
And we'll give you the contract.
We got to know it.
Yeah. No. Again, you answer the taxpayers, and we totally understand that.
Are we? is like a 50-50 thing with the city? Is that what we're looking at?
I'll sit down. Thank you all for having me.
I got one more thing I'd like to ask, if that's okay.
Well, Don, kinda had-
Using your figures, 2.3 people per move, if state aid is about $14,000 to $15,000 for each student, so 0.3 times that is $4,200 to $4,500.
Yep.
That the school system would benefit by this. Am I
That's correct.
looking at it correctly?
That's exactly right.
And so from that standpoint, we can sit and talk all day long and want to tell them, but we need to do something here.
And part of
as soon as
the
possible.
part of this platform goes both ways. The mover goes onto the Make My Move platform, provides information that they qualify themselves. We as the community get to look at the profiles of those individuals. We get to see what their qualified income is. We get to see if they're bringing a spouse. We get to see if they're bringing children. And it's almost like it's a two-way street then at that point, that we can make an emphasis of recruiting people that have children that would be in schools. You know, it would definitely have an impact on those state aid dollars that come in for every student that's enrolled in a school. To Commissioner Friesen's question about the share of the dollars, we wanted to lay this on the table. We know that you have some economic development reserves that you want to use in a different way. I would highly encourage that your buy-in as the county help support each of the communities that simply don't have the budget to do this on their own. So I was going to propose that this be a 2/3 contract with Reno County and a 1/3 with Greater Hutch, and we would use some of our own reserves for this first initial experiment. We couldn't promise that in the future, but if it's something that then is working and we can prove it out, then we can go back to each of the smaller communities and say, is this working for you? Were you able to help someone move into Arlington and take advantage of that gift basket at City Hall? And if it is working, then perhaps then they share in the cost of the next 10.
So how do we get around fair housing laws, though, if we're saying we're not going to give incentives unless you've got a spouse or unless you've got a kid? I mean, isn't that illegal?
No, we worked through all that.
Okay.
Mr. Bogner? you had a-
Well, an observation.
Okay.
We all had to crawl before we walked, and then you walk and then you run. I like the idea about a trial deal. You've got to get a little background and build up to some things. Totally agree with Commissioner Friesen. This first increment probably isn't going to make a lot of difference countywide. It takes volume. He's right. But to risk it all right away, the money isn't there. Like I said, you got to walk before you run. The best case scenario, if we put this together and agree to do it, and I know the 10 number you've already said was lighter than you thought. So if we agree to the experiment, the best case scenario is you bring the 30 you thought you could bring, and then we'll talk. And you get serious about what you do and expanding the program and finding more money for it in the future, if it shows it works. But I'm in agreement. You've got to walk before you run, and that's just my thought, my observation. And agreeing that the number 10 is showing us something, but it's not a large.
We were trying not to break the bank, remember that. So you budget dollars every year for the Economic Development Reserve. Traditionally, those have been used for business incentives. The last few meetings, you've been talking about utilization of them for some housing incentives, incentivizing the city to create a new housing development. I know that Mr. Strawn was here asking for some incentives for new housing development. Housing is an important thing too. And so therefore, we didn't want to decimate your annual budget in the ED reserve with a request for, let's say, $250,000 for a larger package. So this was an effort to get started. We want to do this as an experiment, prove that it works, and it's also going to help fill some houses that are on the market here in Reno County, but also fill those new housing developments as well. So thanks for considering it. I'll visit with Randy and we can talk about a plan to answer your other questions, and hope to talk again about this soon. Unless you have more questions.
No more questions. Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move to proceed with the Make My Move program contingent upon approval by the contract, by our county councilor, and this commission.
Do I hear a second? I do not. What I would like to see personally, you got a comment before this? Well, I just got a couple things down. I'd like to hear some personal feedback from mayors and their councils, whether they buy into this. And I've always been a person, a little skin in the game means something. I know they don't have budgeting for that, but just like you got an incentive package, maybe perhaps there is some monetary out there just a little bit. I mean, if you got some risk in it, you're going to fight to make it work. I always feel that way. And then secondly, for myself personally, there's a forum coming up Tuesday, and I vividly remember mine, where I sat there and probably was harder on you than anybody in the room, Deborah.
I wasn't on the questioning.
No, you weren't on the questioning, but one of my things I still stand on today is, why would we throw money at something for 40 years if it didn't work? Why would you invest your money and lose money? If it doesn't work, let's try something different. And I think we've taken that approach several times over the last year and a half, 2 years, where we're trying something different. This is certainly a different approach to that, where it doesn't seem to be working otherwise. So I'm open to some new ideas, but I think we need to have the information fulfilled by the ones that want to hear these things on this board before we can make any solid decisions. And I would, for that, I don't see a motion, a second to your motion. I think we ought to get that. If you could come back at a later time, Randy can coordinate that and get us that stuff, get emails to you so you can send the further information out to us.
I think we have our marching orders.
We'll do a little further discovery and maybe come back and see whether we go one way or the other on this.
Well, and guys, we've got a list of,
little piece to their heart.
We've got a list of 250 different cities that we can call and, talk to and see how they're doing. So
That's a great idea. Thank you for listening today.
Thank you.
Yeah. At least we can move it in a direction one way or the other.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
I do appreciate
and the
it.
thoughtful conversation. I really do. I understand the questions, and I like that you guys are asking them. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Clear enough? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Well, I think we lost the next participants. The Planning Commission had something. I don't know if you need to speak to this or not, but Resolution 2425, Planning Commission case number 2411, a request by Andrew Beachy, applicant. Yes, did you say something? Do we want to move
Commissioner,
that?
you're skipping an item 7C.
Did
Rochelle's
I?
here.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Rochelle. It ain't like I didn't see you sitting there. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right.
Well, I'll just say what it is, request for an additional employee for Reno County Tag Department. And I would say this, you're probably going to get hooray all over the county when you present this.
I certainly hope so. Well, good morning. I'm Rochelle Calvert, the Reno County Treasurer. I'm here before you today to officially request board approval for the hiring of an additional Tag Department clerk. Okay, as you're aware, members of our community have been facing multi-hour wait times to obtain legally required services for vehicle titles and registrations. At month ends, our queueless wait lines have surpassed lengths of more than 100 people waiting in line with 4-hour plus wait times. We've used social media during those times to alert the customers of those extreme lines and provide helpful information and options. Our goal and intent is to meet community needs and reduce customer frustration over the long wait times with the hiring of an additional clerk. This additional employee will help us improve efficiency and meet a higher standard of service to the citizens of Reno County. We're asking for your approval. We believe the hiring of an additional staff member for the Tag Department will be an investment that will benefit the citizens of Reno County.
Questions for Rochelle? Questions for Rochelle?
Yeah, are we doing a higher volume of tags or, because I don't remember this being an issue in the past, so I was just curious if it was additional volume or where the breakdown is.
We are seeing additional volume in the tags. More and more people, when you think of how many cars the individual family owns, plus they have trailers, campers, we are seeing additional volume, and people aren't keeping their vehicles as long either. So you have that continual turnover. We're also seeing in procedural changes to the state of Kansas, like this year, the embossed standard tags are being replaced. And that adds to the processing times. Whether it's by mail, online, or in person, we have to get those new tags out. We have to get information to them. We have to communicate to them what's going on and what they need to do, the process they need to follow. So, there are things that are slowing us down, and, there are always additional KDOR requirements that we need to follow.
Commissioner Friedman.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rochelle, for being here. I always get in trouble with this.
I know everybody.
But can you walk us through again what it is that you have to go physically to your office to do that you can't do online?
The registration of new vehicle purchases, you have to be there in person. We have to have that title work. The authorized signers need to be there. They are required to come in and see us.
Why?
That is how it is set up through the state of Kansas.
So there's a statute that says you have to physically be there.
So when we're talking about the motor vehicle department, it's similar to where she has statute. Her office has to do these things because to get registered with the Kansas Department of Revenue, they have to check their boxes. This is not a county policy situation. This is
But what are you doing? Like checking IDs or?
We do have their identification, but we're also looking over those title documents and making sure all the information is correct.
But you can do that online. I mean, they could scan it and send it to you, and you could do that, right?
We have to have those original documents. It's not something that can be scanned, and we have to work from that original title document.
The state is concerned about fraud and theft, and that's why they're requiring it. Now, right or wrong, that's the state's justification for why they require these for new vehicles.
But what's the difference between a scanned document and a physical document? Like just the...
Well, the original document, we have it in front of us. A scanned document, with today's technology, it would be very easy for somebody to alter that.
That's a good point. So every new vehicle has to you have to physically bring the title to you.
Those titles come through our office, yes.
Okay. There's no electronic way to do this today.
No, there is not at this time.
I've seen some chatter on other counties. I've seen some articles. And some other people I work with. It's an unfunded mandate on her office, in terms of, because of these requirements, it increases the volume of people going through tags, and so it shifts the burden onto her office to carry out what the state is requiring. I've heard this kind of a rant from other treasurers where it's the state sets all these rules up and then she has to follow them. She doesn't have a choice on what she does. And one of those things is just requiring people to have the physical inspection you're talking about. So it's a common problem. Would you say this is other treasurers are talking about this, Rochelle? Is that accurate? I mean,
But like I can buy a $300,000 house, and I don't have to go to the Register of Deeds and sign a bunch of documents. Like, this makes no sense.
Yes, some weird things can happen with that.
Talk to your state legislators.
How you getting ready to say you're gonna have to talk to people up north?
So one thing is, every new vehicle has to physically walk into your office. What else do you have?
We're assisting people all the time, even with renewals. Customers do have the option of performing renewals online. Not all customers are comfortable with, technology. And then you also have the option that not all vehicles are eligible for online renewal. Keep in mind that insurance companies report insurance to the state database. But for vehicles that aren't in there, or maybe somebody has recently changed their insurance company, that information is not there. The computer is going to see they do not have insurance, and they're going to have to come see us to renew that vehicle so that we
Okay.
can verify.
But that you could send electronically, couldn't you? Like a copy of your insurance?
And we cannot enter that insurance unless we are performing a transaction.
No, I mean, but they could send you like, here's my proof of insurance, right?
they
It
could
has my
certainly
VIN
make-
on it.
They-
And I could email that to you and you could put it in the system without me being
If
there.
we are performing the renewal transaction, yes. They have the option of mailing in their renewal. If they wanted to mail that in along with, their check and a copy of their proof of insurance, it could be handled by mail as well.
So they could email or mail a copy of their insurance.
Emailing their insurance without a transaction is there's nowhere else for us to put that information.
So if I said, here's my insurance,
Mm-hmm.
it's not in the system, you can't put it in the
We
system.
can't put it in the system, no. The only time that we have the opportunity to enter it is during the actual renewal or title work transaction.
So we've got new vehicles, transfers that don't have updated insurance, what else?
We issue the handicap placards.
That one kills me. Like, you're making a handicapped person come into the office.
We don't make them come in. We have many of them who choose to mail those applications in.
Okay, so
And
some people choose to come.
Absolutely.
I'll make an observation real quick, Commissioner Friesen, can I?
Well, I'm just getting the list.
Well, I know, but I think some of the people, when I go in, because I've got like a new tag or something, and I probably come in because I wait and I visit with a few people around there, wander down, but my observation is we're still a generation out from people using online. There's a lot of them
Yes.
there that don't have the technology, don't choose to. We fought this during the building permits.
We've been
They
saying
don't
this
get
for a
online yet.
generation now. Like,
Yeah,
I've
but
been
you
like,
still got
I've
some
been in
elderly people that
technology
don't
now
use that.
for, 2.5 decades.
But I'm not talking about your age.
And I've
You're
heard this
still older
argument
people.
for 2.5 decades. And
Well, it's just an observation.
Well,
I
Commissioner
think it's an old
Friesen-
argument.
Yes, but when we are looking at the end of the month wait times and we're experiencing those 3-4 hour plus wait times, you have a lot of people who will take advantage of our queue list system, and they'll put themselves in line, they'll see the wait times, they know it's keeping in touch with them, and they'll go to run their other errands. They're not spending all their wait times there. But we do have still a significant population who will come in, they will sign in on the spot. Most of these are, yes, our older generation, and they will sit there in our office and wait the entire time. They're not comfortable with technology at the same level that you are. They want that personal interaction,
I know, but it's becoming, that's like, it used to be the convenience of, the internet. At some point, we have to say, this is the convenience of walking in because, and again, this is where I'm going to get in trouble. Like, you haven't, you're wanting the old system to remain intact forever, and you haven't tried. Like, I know the percentage of people that have internet in America, and it's very, very high nowadays. And I think people are not incentivized to use the convenience of online. And my big problem with this request, even though a lot of this is out of your control, is it perpetuates a problem that we need to incentivize people to use things that are more convenient, even if they are a little uncomfortable. It just takes like one time, like try it one time. And if we perpetuate it by continuing to make it easy, by adding more bodies in the department when we have all of this technology, we're never going to get through the learning curve necessary to like stop spending extra taxpayer money to perpetuate a system that is antiquated. So, I mean, I have two issues. One is I think we need to continue to educate the population that there are better ways, and we have to incentivize that. And if it's, last time I talked about this, I got in trouble for people that are incapable of using the internet, which is fine. I don't think we should penalize those people. They need to have access. But there are there are people like Commissioner Parks that likes to go in there, right? That's fine. But he should be charged like $50 for going in there because he can do it online. I know he can do it, right? So I think there is a problem there where we have people that don't need to be there, that are not disincentivized to be there, that are clogging up the system for the people that do, the people that are handicapped, the people that have no access to the internet. That's a very small part of the population. So like I'm trying to get this information out on the record because I'm going to send this to our legislators too, because this is absolutely insane that the vehicle tag system is not fully electronic, that you can't, like, you go buy a vehicle and they're asking for all of this information at the time of purchase, and they can't put that in a system that's done. You get the title and you're done with it. It makes no sense. This is so outdated. I don't want to spend any more taxpayer money on such a stupid system. I know it's not your fault, and you're just doing what you have to do. And the system isn't stupid because of the staff here, but it is, like, somebody needs to say the system's stupid.
Well, and if I am correct, it costs more to use the online system than it does to come in person, correct?
At a present fees, yes.
That's stupid.
Right. I mean, and they don't have anything, I mean, unless we raise their fees, they don't have anything to do with that. And then the other thing, is there a drop box where people could drop it off, or do they have to physically mail in order to not pay any
They're
fees?
allowed to drop off, like if they have their renewal, they're more than welcome to drop it off in our office. They can do that.
Would that help you guys out at all?
Usually, our busiest wait times are, of course, that last week of the month, usually. And keep in mind, at that point, people know that the mail time to get renewals out to them, plus the time for us to process them. If we have a waiting room completely full of people and multi-hour waits, we're not going to be doing a lot of mail processing that day. You know, they're going to be waiting for that. They need those tags because they have plans for this weekend and they need to travel and they want legal plates.
Right. Well, I guess my thought was, if you've got 50 people in line and you just make an announcement, hey, if anybody wants to drop it off, then you won't be charged the fee and we'll mail it out to you. I mean, like, I didn't know if that would help you guys out at all or not.
Yeah, and that's always an option for them to drop off.
Right, but it's not publicized.
It's not publicized, but we've always taken dropped off renewals.
There's a sign right there that says dropping it. Yep.
We don't wait.
Why
we
is
don't.
it more expensive? The fee?
You're gonna have to talk to your legislatures or the
Is it a
Department of
fee
Revenue
or
about that.
what? Like,
Yeah, it's like you have to pay, I think, $2 for every vehicle that
Yes,
you renew
$2
online.
a vehicle plus the credit card fees to renew online, and those monies do not come to Reno County. So, if they were renewing in person, at least we'd get.
You can renew your passport online, like the most secure document that we have. Like I can do that online.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the reason I didn't do it online, because it was more expensive to do it online, and I was already here anyway, so.
So the state needs to drop the fees.
You're losing Mr. Friesen, I'm afraid.
I think we need to get on. We've heard this, and the legislator controls us. They don't like a lot of the things
But
that
until
say
you guys
controls us.
make a stink about it, it's not going to change. Like,
Yeah, well, our goal here is to meet community need, to reduce customer frustration. We have so many people waiting long times, and we can do something about it. And that is our hope here.
it's just perpetuating a bad process.
You did say, I used the mail-in. It's so much simpler.
If Don can do it, anybody can.
No, I did not say the internet. I said I used the mail. Now let's but the point well taken is there are other alternatives if people would just use it.
And if they'd come to see us much earlier in the month, it would, reduce some of those lines at the end. But, it's human nature. People are strapped for money, and they hold on to it until that last point that they can.
Maybe an extra $1 will help incentivize, so therefore I move to approve the request by the county treasurer for the increase in the registration fees for those who come in.
What about the employee?
Let's see, we're missing an employee here. Oh, yeah.
Oh, fees are gonna go up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is about new.
I got confused with all the other conversations, so I apologize. Move to approve the extra position as requested by County Treasurer.
Motion by Mr. Hurst to approve that.
There will be discussion before we
Yes.
vote. So I would second.
Seconded by Commissioner Vogner. Any discussion?
Yes.
Trying to get it started.
This is coming out of the float positions that we,
No, this is out of motor vehicle fund. It's a non-property tax levied fund. The fees that people pay for all the employees on the tag, at the tag office. So this will not impact the general fund or property taxes. This is a separate fund.
That was my point of discussion, that where's the money coming from?
Yep.
Commissioner Friesen. Is there a way we could get a little more creative on the fees to where we're incentivizing or disincentivizing the use of physical facilities when you have virtual options? Like I think you're going to raise it $2 or whatever.
Well, we raised the fee $1, which will be, a facility fee of $2.50 for Reno County.
Nobody, it needs to be at least, again, I know there are people that can't use online, and it'd be great if we could waive fees for those people. But those that can, to Commissioner Weitzel's point, those should be higher than the online fees. If people are coming in because the fees are cheaper, I think that's a bad fee structure.
Well, and keep in mind that as of, the beginning of 2025, our facility fee will go up to $250 per vehicle when they come in to renew or register a vehicle.
Is that set
The
by
online-
you?
go
Is
ahead.
that set by you guys, or is that?
That is set by us. That is set by the treasurer. That's the only fee
How's
that
that
we can
compare to
really
other
control.
sites that do tags?
Sedgwick County, $5. Barton County, $5. Stafford County, $5.
It should be at least $5. You get.
yeah,
if
there
you
was a
want
chart you
paper-
sent us, right?
Yes.
If
that's what I wanted to say.
Dish will charge you $5 to mail a bill, $20 to call in and pay online. It's just trying to drive people to more efficient ways to do things. And so I would like the fee structure changed to not incentivize people to come there that don't need to be there before I would vote on this.
I think the fees are what are paying for the people though. So by them raising the
Yes.
fee $1, basically that's what we're getting is we're charging them fees to pay for the extra.
And I have
person.
I have no idea how many emails about this subject, so people.
Well, yeah, it's that we get emails on the efficiency, the ability to get in on time, the commercial process. I know, again, it's not you didn't create it, but it's horrible. I've watched my staff go, try to figure that out, and it's there is nothing that this should not be that complicated.
Now, why in the world we charge a fee to renew online is beyond me, but that's not anything we can control.
Any further comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor for approving.
Can we get a fee structure change to accommodate this?
That's up to the
Well, I think
treasurer.
that'd be a separate
Keep
motion
in
to
mind,
work
the
on if we
fees
were
for
gonna do
basic motor vehicles, those are set by the state of Kansas, and those fees have been the same for many, many, many years. The Kansas County Treasurers Association has been working with legislators repeatedly to increase funding for county offices that are performing the state function of motor vehicle registrations. We don't have any control of those. Legislation has not yet been successful. The only fee I can control is that facility fee.
Why do they, I don't understand, every county has to have this problem. Why is it that legislators don't want to change anything?
That was brought up at the K-90, not K-96, but the Quad County.
Yeah.
When we were there, the fact that they are trying to work and get KAC to really push this idea that counties are doing their work for them.
But why don't they care?
Because
You'll have to ask our
they're using
representatives.
somebody else's assets for their gains.
Although this is a money thing?
Management. They have classes on management. You use somebody else's
I really don't think you have to.
assets for your gain.
Really?
And that's what the state's doing here.
I don't think you have
It
to
would be a
increase their funding. You just have to reduce the red tape.
It would be a good topic for the KAC, and I know over in Barton County, that treasurer is on top, is going to be I think he's going to be one of the officers or the liaison to the legislature for the State Treasurers Association, and he's going to push it. So if anyone wants, I can loop any commissioners in on that effort.
I don't understand, if you're a legislator and you look at this, it's a giant mess. Like, why wouldn't they, there's something we're missing as to why they
We could
won't
ask
fix it.
Patrick to put together a strongly worded letter to send to them.
I think you just need to send them a link to this and say, watch it. This is how,
Every year I watch the legislature do things, and I wonder why.
could we be a little more creative on the fee structure?
I think that's a topic for another day if you want to address that, if you want to try to talk about that. But
I just think it's a good trade.
we're really talking about a hire here and not changing fees today, am I correct?
Yeah,
So it's really
It's a
have one
fair
motion.
request if we're gonna increase.
Oh, I think it's fair. We can come back and
Increase
visit about it if
staff.
you feel like.
Let's look at the
What's
fees.
Barton County charge, Mr. Counselor?
Let me,
I don't know.
I was gonna put you on the spot.
Sorry. I know it's the issue. I've heard him. It's
Well,
the
I'm sure
same
they
thing. The
complain
state
too,
pushing
yeah.
it onto them is the same
Well,
issue.
That's what we're
Barton,
doing
sorry,
though. They're
Barton-
raising the fee and then paying for it.
It is 5 as well.
it is $2.50, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Is the
Sedgwick
fee
is
higher?
$5, Leavenworth is $5. Keep in mind, the statute would limit us to $2.50. We have only one motor vehicle registration facility in Reno County, but counties offering multiple facilities can charge $5 per vehicle. So $2.50 would be our
Maxed out
limit.
at 250.
Yeah.
Well, I fixed that.
So, but like another point you made in your letter is like all the commercial tags are coming here. Do we charge for commercial processing? Can we?
As far as adding additional fees to that, no. Right now, we are only helping citizens of Reno County with commercial. We don't have the staffing to help those outside of Reno County with their commercial needs.
We can't charge extra.
There's nothing set in place where we
And
can
that's
charge
not
extra for that.
online either.
The state does have an online system. Very few of our customers have been successful in using it, but there is that possibility.
There's your next project.
Well, and if somebody,
That's why I come in with.
can register their commercial vehicle in 2 different counties and they register here, then we get the property tax revenue for it. So,
Well, for today, we've got a motion and a second. I'm sorry, I don't want to
No, that's fine.
detail it, but I think that's a conversation for another day. Any further conversation? Not, let's see where it goes. Roll call.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen,
No.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel,
yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Hey, I just wanted to say again, like, I think you guys are doing as best a job as you can. And this, like, my rant, all these comments have nothing to do with your team or the Reno County Tag Department. I understand it's, you're just in the middle. So please don't take, these comments as negative towards the staff. It's just, like, I feel really strongly that we need to make a change and we're not, like, somehow we gotta like leverage the levers we have are like money here. And so I'm just holding the line on the lever. Obviously it didn't matter today, but please don't take it as negative to your team. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you all.
Rochelle. Appreciate it. Hey, at this time till 11:45, we're going to take a quick break. And then we'll come back and reconvene after that because we'll have a little bit to do after that. And I suspect everybody might need a break. Appreciate the conversation, but I'm going to call it back to order. 7D is our next item. Resolution 2024, now that I actually got there. And Planning Commission Case 2024-11, a request by Andrew Beachy for conditional use permit for an existing construction company and minor repair business, vehicle repair business, into compliance with zoning regulations on, you got the land zoned R1 rural district. The property is located on the north side of West 17th Avenue, approximately 1,500 feet west of intersection of West 17th Avenue and North Wilshire Drive. Property address 3108 West 17th Avenue. I'll open that up. Questions, comments? Do we need?
Do you want to say anything, Mark? I mean, I encourage the commissioners to read if you had a chance to read through the whole saga. I think it's fairly self-explanatory.
I got.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can help move this along.
Sure.
I'm going to sum up 100 pages here. What I read, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is this is a area out, it looks like west of Hutch, 17th Street. It's east of Hutch? East of Hutch. Sorry. West of Hutch. In the county. This is a residentially zoned area parcel. The applicant previously applied for an accessory use building that was larger than we generally allow, and we made an exception for that building under the requirements that it be used for residential purposes. Am I correct so far?
That's correct. Mark Von Atchen, County Planner. The owner of the property applied to the Board of Zoning Appeals to exceed the 2,000 square foot limitation on accessory buildings, and he got that approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals back in 2021 to construct a residential accessory building.
Subsequent to that, there's been a complaint or two from the neighbors. You investigated it, found that it was used for commercial purposes. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then now we're here, like you've sought to enforce the regulation. They are trying to preempt that with a new conditional use permit.
That's correct. After investigation, I found that it was being used as a commercial business, which is against the zoning regulations because it requires a conditional use permit. The applicant or owner was sent a letter informing him to either apply for a conditional use permit or cease operation of the business.
Okay. So I really hate like messing around and, you know, what people do on their property and like unincorporated areas of the county. At the same time, like it seems like the applicant went in fully informed on this issue and made certain representations and commitments that they didn't fulfill. So to keep this moving, I'd motion to approve the staff's recommendation as presented.
The Planning Commission's recommendation also.
Yeah.
Planning Commission's recommendation.
I'll
To approve.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Any further discussion? Appreciate you doing that, Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a denial.
Correct. I didn't hear you, Mr. Hurst. Yes. The Planning Commission recommended denial 6-1. Actually, it should have been a 7-0 vote due to one commissioner not understanding the motion. But yeah, the motion was to deny the conditional use permit.
Further comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Our beloved 7E. Would you like to set the stage for this?
I will try again. I'll try for we have recommendations from the Plan Commission regarding commercial solar in the zoned area. I would focus the commissioners on kind of two parts of this decision. One is, Mark, make sure I get this right. One is textual amendments to, actually not the commercial part, but the residential part. Is that right? So we had textual amendments based on the commissioner's feedback that went back to the Plan Commission, and and they made the changes as they understood the plan, you guys wanting them to be. So they're sending that back for adoption.
It's
So
two
that-
separate motions.
Yeah, so that would be the first half of it, and staff believe that that's relatively, everyone on the same page, relatively benign. We'd like to accomplish that today. And then the second item for discussion is the Plan Commission has recommended broadly to allow commercial solar to happen, but they haven't, if a majority of commissioners approve that recommendation, it will go back to the Plan Commission to make the actual specific rules. The other option would be a supermajority of commissioners voting to not allow commercial solar to happen, in which case commercial solar would end. That would just cease that whole discussion. In the zoned area, thank you, Don. If you do the first option where a majority take the recommendation, we'll still have a process where the Plan Commission makes the specific rules, which will come back to you again for scrutiny, revision, etc. So you could adopt the recommendation to just do commercial solar generally, and then you could submit recommendations, suggestions, thoughts for the Plan Commission to consider when making those rules. But that's what's before you.
If it gets adopted today, then we could make recommendations to send back with the Planning Commission.
Because the actual substantive rules will still come back to you guys for full review. So we're not finishing it today. The only way it finishes today is if there's a vote to just completely not do commercial solar in the zone. If that happens, then we're done. If anything else happens, then the Planning Commission is going to actually develop rules which will involve setbacks, which will involve potentially areas where solar is not allowed, which involves all those things. But that will be at that process will have to continue at their level and then back to your level. So, I would really like you to consider adopting the changes on the residential, the textual amendments, and then B, consider which path you're going to take on the commercial.
So am I understanding that, and as I read through this, that dealt with either small or residential primarily was, and I was trying to figure out what the yellow marks on here were, yellow highlights were. Is that things you're taking out? Because I read it two different ways when I look at it. In other words, page 15-12, item J of 58A.
Everything that is highlighted in the yellow are things that are being added to the regulations.
Oh, okay.
There's
That's what I
one
thought.
section in there, there's one section in there where something is being scratched out, and that was dealing with solar collectors. We do not have a definition of solar collectors in the regulations, and so that term is being eliminated from the regulations. But everything else you see highlighted in the yellow are things that are going to be added. This commission asked for, I think, quote unquote, light regulations on private solar, and so we have just added those. Essentially, they're going to follow the same setbacks that a building would follow. And that's the only thing we added for private solar.
So a motion to adopt those changes will end the process for the private solar.
And limited scale was already done anyway.
Limited scale is already done, so you could end that process today.
I'll move. Ag's done too. I mean, it's never been.
Yeah, it's in there. It's right there.
That's what I thought.
A lot of the text amendments were just making it crystal clear to folks that a limited scale solar project requires a conditional use, so that's why you see that simple term being placed under 58A, I believe. And then there are regulations for ag. Ag still requires a permit, but it's a no-fee permit. And then the residential private.
Got a question here while I have your expertise. The ag permit, if we're done before we passed any of this, is there anything we have to go back and do? Do we have to talk to you about it or let you know it's there, like these solar pumps and things like that, these pastures. I'm taking it that we need to, is that the kind we're talking about, or are we talking about like the large scale to run on a business, you know?
It'd be both, any type of solar that would be placed out there. But to answer your question, anything that was put in prior to the adoption of this regulation and prior to the publication in the paper is grandfathered in, and it is not subject to needing a no-fee permit or an ag exemption permit from me. So everything is fine that's out there right now. After this is published and made official, then yes, then everything would have to get that no-fee
So
permit.
if I'm gonna build one after today, or put one in after today, I need to get the permit?
Or, yes.
Previously, I'm okay.
Previously, you're okay. That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, section 1518A, that's like, most of this is related to residential or, not residential, private solar, but 1518.
Pages.
It's
Page 15?
1518, Adobe, it's the Adobe page 24.
There it
So this isn't private. This is basically saying that we will not do commercial solar energy systems inside the zoned area of the county.
That is the text amendment this governing body requested us bring forth as a proposal to prohibit commercial solar in the zoned area of the county. That's what was asked of staff and the planning commission. That is the text amendment that was recommended for denial by the planning commission.
That's what I'm calling Part B. Is that what I'm calling Part B? Like, yeah.
Yes.
So what we'd like, that, I think that's a totally different discussion, because you're right. What I'm suggesting is that the first part, and is that in the separate resolution, Mark, that just deals with the so in the packet, there's a resolution that if you voted to adopt the resolution, it says yes to everything prior to what's highlighted on the board right now. We did it that way so that there could be some clarity on this subject, because it's easy to get distracted and to go down different directions.
So what's that resolution number?
What's the number, Mark?
I don't have the actual number of the rest.
I've got them. But
So if you had, so a motion to adopt 2024-27 would incorporate all the other things that deal with private solar, and then you could have a separate discussion on.
But doesn't it doesn't include this?
Does not include
Right.
that, correct.
There's a separate set of resolutions that discusses commercial. I believe there's one that discusses approving of the text amendment, one that discusses denying of the text amendment.
So I'd move that motion.
2024-27, which those are all the private solar.
I'd second that. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Hurst?
yes.
Commissioner Friesen?
Yes.
Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Whiteside?
Yes.
And Commissioner Vogler?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. And on the second half then.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So, Mark, to try and make, because it's a recommendation to deny something, what Mark's created is one resolution, which I'll call 28A. And that resolution is to allow commercial solar to come forward in some form. And then B would be to not allow commercial solar to go forward.
So, just to clarify, if we basically don't take action on adding section 8 in 1518, page 24. So right now, if we do nothing, this doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so, but there's still a moratorium on it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so till when?
December 1st currently.
Okay. So what are the other recommendations in staff's? So staff recommends to not do this, right?
Staff did not have a recommendation. The planning commission recommended to not do that, to not prohibit commercial.
So what's your recommendation? If we don't do that, then what?
If you don't do that, then we're back to needing to create regulations or not. I mean, we can have it as no regulations, no specific regulations, or we have to go back and create specific regulations for commercial solar.
To recap, though, we're basically just looking at a vote, whether we want to ban it, whether we want to accept regulations process. And either way we go, we're done if we get a ban. If we don't, then recommendations could be given to you to take back to the planning commission about what we think we'd like to see in that regulation.
Can you?
In
The
a
only
nutshell.
thing, because the planning commission made a recommendation and the recommendation is this is why I did the separate resolution, because it's a recommendation not to do number 8.
What
So
page
it's a
is that
little,
resolution?
You know, the
do we have that in
planning,
the packet?
planning-
It's at the very end. So that would, you can adopt their recommendation, which would be to allow commercial solar to proceed in some form with a 3-person vote. You can go against their recommendation with a 4-person vote. So we need to kind of count. In some ways, this is a rehash of what the very beginning of this process, when the commissioners decided whether or not they were going to ask.
But it's really kind of redundant if we take up the issue of adding a whole lot of minutia in it today without it coming back to us if it got adopted. Other than some recommendations, so you don't have to come back and work on something you might hear today.
the Planning and Zoning Commission agreed that there are areas in the county that a commercial utility scale solar system does not belong. That's in the record. Commissioner Strand commented, the biggest concern is a watershed. We have to find ways to mitigate that concern. Mitigation after the fact is many times non-productive. It's time-consuming and it's an expensive process. And it can even cause more conflicts. In this area, there's a lot of fragile soils. There's undulating topography. There's sediment runoff can occur in a process. Here's an example. You want to pass this down? This is what 7 sections look like.
This would be something I think we'll discuss after we take.
Well, I'm getting there, okay? I've listened to others talk about lots of other things. There's about $2 million, $2.25 million of revenue presently coming off of this land that a company has already leased, even though they said they weren't gonna do anything prior to getting regulations in place. I think later on, agrivoltaic, which I really like, could come into place with the regulations. And each one of those yellow spots is in your district, okay? That shows what? 4,480 acres, which there's at least that much, from what I understand, either leased or in process. This is what amounts to in each one of our districts, okay? So, to get this process started, I would move that the commission send back to the planning and zoning to reconsider a prohibition on commercial utility solar systems within the designated Cheney Lake watershed area of the portion of Reno County that is zoned. And I think that if you look at, now I've studied this little soil map here, and it shows the fragileness of some of that property. And from what I understand, with regard to what they call the hydrological unit code, that this would follow within that. Now, I don't know enough about this to really be competent about talking about what all Huck has to do. But that, to me, that is my recommendation, that I don't see any problem with letting people put up a commercial, but I do, based upon the planning and zoning's conversation, that there are certain areas within the county that are not suitable and doesn't belong, and that the biggest portion of the watershed people that are in that area have said we have concerns. Now, I'm not going to get into chemicals and all this because we don't know enough about that for sure. But we do know about the soil, and we do know about the grasslands, and we know about crops. And within this area, there's been a lot of money spent with regard to protecting the Cheney Lake watershed. And I am concerned more about construction, and I'm more about what might happen later on. And quite frankly, I don't want my name to be associated with something that contaminates the city of Wichita's water, should it ever happen. I'm not saying it will, but we didn't think burying things would ever occur either. And when it comes down to agriculture, you know, most of us get our lands plotted where we start putting fertilizer on like we should, instead of just putting on more. And that has just come about in the last few years. So that's my recommendation, is that we send it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with the idea of reconsidering that area of the Cheney Lake watershed. And I know there's some comments have made about what actually constitutes the watershed. And if you look on this map, you will see the tributaries that feed into that within that area. And
But this is not the time to send something back for change of regulation, is it? I mean, clarify that,
Yes,
because
Chairman.
this is
Point
purely
of
a
order,
motion.
there's a motion.
There's a I was waiting to see if
Okay,
you got a
all right,
second.
all right, that's fine.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Weitzel.
If I may, I just was going to procedurally say
Yeah.
that it is a option of this board by a simple majority vote to return something to the Plan Commission with specific issues to review, which is what is included in that motion. The only thing I would advise you is when it comes back, if that's your vote today, we're done for today. They would consider that, then the Plan Commission makes a second recommendation back with or without adopting your suggestions. And at that point, it is a strict majority vote how to proceed.
I made it singular because I wasn't sure whether I should add another part to that, and that's regarding.
When you say strict majority vote at that time, 3-2 can pass banning it.
When it comes back, when it goes down and comes back, then with the supermajority issue is no longer relevant. It's just straight majority.
That's
Yes, sir.
that's what I'm thinking.
So, and I would hope that they go ahead and work on regulations at the same time.
Good. Clarification, please, on this vote, which is rejecting their recommendation.
I understood the motion to be returning it to them for further consideration, which is the third option. There's accept, reject, and return. I believe the motion was to return it with specific.
How is it not a rejection?
It's because it's in the statute regarding these. That says you can return it to them for consideration of a specific issue or issues, which is what the commissioner's motion was.
And then if we voted to do that and it comes back from the Planning Commission, the next vote.
The next vote is just, unless it's a tie vote somehow, if everybody votes, something's going to happen one way or the other. But it would have to be a strict majority.
But then it wouldn't take 4-1 to ban it.
Correct. At that point,
so this is kind of a play on,
So we send it back and they say no. They just bat it back. I mean, they already said they don't want to do this.
I have no idea what the plan. I haven't spoken with them about that, but that is a potential thing that could happen. Yes.
From what I gather, most of the concern in the area is only the watershed area.
And that was in the Planning Commission's recommendations to keep it out of that, so if that's,
No, it wasn't, but that's what we're adding.
Well,
or
question,
requesting they do.
Are these, like environmental factors, are they a factor in a conditional use?
Yeah, I believe all the things that, the environmental issues would be come up in a conditional use permit.
So-
I mean, I'm assuming that those will be in the regs. The regs, when they make them, which they haven't yet, will have a list of factors that have to be answered in the conditional use permit. Every single county in the state that's regulating solar requires environmental factors to be part of a conditional use permit. So it's a fairly safe assumption that we would also. Chairman Parks Don Britton's asking to speak.
Yes, please.
Don Britton, Director of Public Works. So what you're asking to do is to either prohibit large-scale solar in the zoned area of the county or not. And I think what you're asking is you would not prohibit it as long as you could prohibit it around the Nenasko watershed that feeds Cheney Lake. That's the actual description of that.
That'd be correct.
And so
would this be deemed to be a non-prohibited vote?
The motion was to send it back. The motion on the floor was to send it back to the Plan Commission.
But I want to say this, if 4 out of 5 of you want to allow large-scale solar in the zoned area county, but not within the Nenasko watershed, you can do that here without sending it back. You can do that with a 4-to-1 vote to allow it, but not in the Cheney, not in the Nenasko watershed that feeds Cheney Lake. You can do that here. To send it.
Could I ask for a reading of the motion?
Are we talking about the zoned area only?
Only
or
the
whole,
zoned area is
or
what
the
we're
whole
talking about.
watershed?
Only the zoned.
We can't, right now.
We can't speak to the whole watershed.
We can't
Mr.
speak to the
Chair,
whole
could I
watershed.
ask for a
That'll be
reading of the
brought up
motion?
later.
What I wrote, which is I'm not the official minutes taker, but I wrote the motion as a motion to send it back to the Plan Commission for reconsideration of the Cheney Lake watershed area. And I believe that is there was additional information that you gave, but I believe that was the main motion.
I can requote
And
it
if
again.
that was
Okay,
added,
yeah.
if that was added, as I understood it, he would be willing to accept their recommendation beyond that. Is that correct?
That wasn't the motion.
I'm not speaking for anybody. I want to know. I'm with Daniel here. I'd like to know.
Yeah, I mean, if we, as far as my second to that, I think we need to. I think there's good reasons to ban it in the watershed area, but not the rest of the county. And so I would be willing to accept regulations for the rest of the county if the rest of the commission is willing to ban it in the watershed area. Because again, I don't want my name attached to
And
that.
just
if
for
there's a
fodder, we
problem.
threw a mark on that. It's about 3 miles around the lake.
Well, if you prohibit it in the Nenasko watershed around Cheney Lake, then I would recommend that we're not trying to follow this line, that we're gonna go the closest section lines so that we can have a legal description of that.
Right.
And so it's approximately 3, I think the furthest may be 4. It's
Right.
between 2 and 4 miles around Cheney Lake is where that
On
is in the
average, yeah.
zoned area of the county.
I will restate the motion if that would be helpful. I move that the commission send back to the planning and zoning to reconsider a prohibition on commercial utility scale systems, solar systems, within the designated Cheney Lake watershed area of the portion of Reno County that is zoned. And the reason that is because we're only dealing with the zoned area at this present time.
Now, after saying that, if 4 out of 5 of you agree with that, it doesn't have to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Was there evidence presented that indicated that solar commercial solar systems could damage our watershed.
Depends on what you want to read.
Was there anything presented? Is there anything on the record?
There was, I believe there was testimony given that indicated there was evidence, and really, I think
Wait, that sounds like hearsay. Like,
no, I think what you asked if there was evidence.
Somebody said there's evidence, or they presented evidence.
There were presentations, and it's up to it's up to each individual how much weight to give the various testimonies.
But there was factual evidence, not somebody saying that there was evidence. There was evidence on the record that indicated that this could be an issue.
There was not an environmental test done by a scientist, but there were people who presented evidence based on articles that they had found and other experience that said that they thought this was an issue.
So we have articles on the record
We do.
that say this could be an environmental issue.
We do. The ones that Commissioner Bogner presented last week would be some of those.
There's also independent studies that have been peer-reviewed out there that state that there is no significant.
There was also evidence contrary to those articles. That's why I think
that's tough because, and then if you want to look at the latest videos of a hurricane that just went through and wiped out a bunch of communities, in one of the lakes is floating a whole big field. None of them sunk. So I mean, it's a little tough. If they were broken up, you think they'd hit the bottom of the lake, but they're floating after going through the air.
Just or just hypothetically, if I were to try to amend this motion, could I amend it to where it said that an environmental study had to be produced that indicated that this wasn't an issue, and that study had to be acceptable to the Planning Commission and the County Commission?
the legal issue goes back to that Zimmerman case, which I shared with the commissioners a while ago, which said because this is a legislative issue, they're not required to meet a scientific or a judicial standard of proof on how they vote. So it gets very difficult to try and basically, I understand, to try and
Who's they?
add into the, who's they?
They are not required.
The commissioners, when they vote, have legislative authority, so the standard for them to vote isn't to say scientifically it's been proven this happens or that
Right,
happens, and that's
but
hard to
we can still
extrapolate.
create that legislation, right? Like I could ask that, trying to thread the needle here between the different opinions, and basically say that within the watershed area, it is denied except for if a environmental study could be produced that indicated this was not an issue, and then we could review the facts.
I'm sorry, I think what you're suggesting is that during part of the CUP process, an environmental study be done. Is that what you're?
And it
you're-
must be satisfactory to the Planning Commission and the County Commission.
I misinterpreted you to say the environmental study would be done now. I think what you're suggesting that it be denied unless the CUP provide an environmental study that be reviewed.
Yeah.
I understand you now. I think that's possible.
So it basically gives a warning to an applicant up front that we consider this a very sensitive area, and there's a threshold that has to be met, and that's an environmental study that satisfies these concerns. Because who knows whether 3 miles, 5 miles, 1 mile, we're not environmentalists. We're just arbitrarily making some buffer area based on evidence that may or may not actually exist, which I don't like doing. But I think it's a fair point that you don't want toxins in your water. So flagging it as such, I think would leave the door cracked, which I like.
Yeah, the problem with that, though, is 97% of these sorts of studies, if I remember correctly, agree with the person that funded the study.
Well, that's where you have to.
And where would the liability be, you know, if they're, you know, if the watershed is contaminated and Wichita doesn't have drinking water?
Well, that's like, you can say the sky's falling too. I don't know that I have evidence for that, but
You know,
and I can probably pay somebody to say that.
some,
But it gives, it doesn't say no, it doesn't say yes, and the planning commission can make that determination based on the study. And if you want to look at the study and say, hey, this is paid for by the developer, therefore I'm not going to accept it, like that would be your prerogative as a commissioner at that point. It just leaves it up to like evidence-based decision-making versus this arbitrary, like we're going to create these lines. And
Does the state, do they weigh in on this at all? In any way, shape, or form?
Regulation. They have no regulation.
As far as in watershed areas, floodplains, do they weigh in on anything with solar? Not really.
I haven't seen anything.
I was just curious.
they're going to have all kinds of interest in like
FSA,
erosion and floodplain. You got to get all that from them, right?
Not to my knowledge, Commissioner Parks, but I talk about the floodplain now. If panels are put in the floodplain, then they're going to have to go through the floodplain process, which should be elevating of any kind of electrical components, elevating of any kind of building and stuff like that. But there are not anything in there that would specifically
I
prohibit.
guess my question is, if they haven't taken cause with this and they understand that there's legal floodplains and watersheds, then where does the liability, if that happens, where are you really culpable? Because
So a lot of those, typically when that all happens is just later in the process, typically as part of a conditional use permit. If it's near a environmentally sensitive area, the developer will be required to get a Kansas Wildlife and Parks review of it. I think my recommendation when we get to the point where we're writing what the standards are for a CUP, it should be paid for by the developer, but the engineering firm chosen by the county to alleviate what Commissioner Weitzel was saying. So that's how you alleviate the idea of someone paying for their study. Make them pay for it, they have to put up the money, but then we would, as a county at that point, select the environmental review firm.
Is there a legal description of the watershed?
Staff have worked on one. That's what Don was alluding to.
Yeah, we have a description sent to us by the state.
Is it roughly this kind of 5 mile radius?
Well, it's not 5 mile, but
that's 5
yeah,
miles.
it's
That little circle, I just was experimenting, okay? And that just shows a 5 mile area from land owned by the U.S. or fishing game.
you talking about this?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, we snapped that on GIS yesterday. That particular deal on this map is approximately 3 miles.
We have one.
3 miles.
3 miles, 5 miles, it's something.
Yeah.
I sent you all a map of just the zoned area of the county and the watershed is outlined in that.
Right, the blue.
Here's the complete watershed.
Can I?
Yeah, my one point I think deserves a little bit of consideration is the fact that we represent the people. I just recently read a study done, research in the federal government that over 51% of the people that make the rules back there, they think they know more than the people that they're doing laws for. And we have everyone that presented at this was from that area. There was negative against it. There was not one positive that presented from the area. And I think we represent the people that are in that area. And regardless, I just feel that they live there, they farm there, they raise kids there, and that was what their wish was. And so I don't want to present it, keep it from happening in the rest of the zoned area. But I think we need to pay a little bit of attention to the people that live in the area.
Okay, so it feels like there could be a majority, 3-2 at least, that would be willing to send this back, which is all that's required, right? So I mean, the majority, would you guys consider just like disposing of this issue today and not sending it back? Like we could get 4 votes and just say, hey, like by rule, you cannot place solar within the defined watershed area except for when there's an environmental study paid for by the developer, picked by staff, commission, picked by the commission, that is produced, that satisfies the commission's concerns on this matter. With that, could we get 4 votes and just get this done so we don't make the planning commission do that again?
Well, there was a motion, we'll find out.
Well, we're down the road, like we're stuck. We got a motion that only takes a majority, and then we're gonna kick it back, and then it's just kicking the can. I'm asking the motioners, if they would consider.
The motion at the Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe, right, if I'm wrong, tell me, was 5-2 for the lifting the ban.
I mean, especially if they're just gonna ping pong it back to us, we could just get it done today. It would require 4-1.
I would hope that we would not have to come back to you until we have regulations for you to consider. Which this, you can prohibit it in the watershed, and then that didn't even have to be part of the regulations, or that can be part of the regulations. You can end that today or not, but once you allow commercial solar in the zoned area of the county, whether you prohibit it in the watershed or not, now we know we need to start creating regulations because we have none.
And that was another part, but I didn't want to include that portion in with this motion to make 2 parts. I can include that in the motion, but I felt that one item needed to be in a motion rather than 2 or 3.
I'm not speaking for the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think that they realize maybe there's a discussion and an issue with it within the watershed, at least around the lake. I'll say that. So I don't know that that's a big a deal, but you can end that today if you choose to.
So we could
By 4-1 votes, prohibiting it in the designated watershed and within the zoned area around Cheney Lake.
Does that all encompass one vote, that if we prohibited it just in one area and took a vote, then we would, is that 2 separate votes that we send back to 4-1 for prohibiting it, and then we take a vote whether we want to? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think what's been discussed is amending the recommendation to prohibit within Cheney Lake, but accepting the rest of the recommendation. So,
yes.
Yeah.
2 in 1 thing, yeah.
It just gets so complicated so quickly, but yeah. And if that were to happen, then you'd go back to the Plan Commission and they would not be able to they would already have that baked in, that Cheney Lake was off their zone. That wouldn't be a discussion for them. They would make the regulations for everything else, and that would come back to you guys for approval of the regulations.
Yeah, you can press your button, go ahead.
So we're talking about water use for the people. So in doing this, we're protecting one water source in Reno County instead of the one that pertains more to Reno County. And that's the Equus-Bed's groundwater, which is within a few feet of the surface. There are several areas where there are problems there already. You're dealing with one right now, with the Yoder deal, where some stuff was buried in the past. There are other issues with other energy sources that have contaminated various parts. And those are more critical to Reno County. This is critical to the city of Wichita, what we're talking about. The Equus-Beds, every one of our cities gets their water from there. Every business in this county counts on that water being clean. So we're going to let that be unconsidered and just consider this area. which is fine. It needs protecting. I'm not saying that. But my point is, I mean, this area you're talking about, Daniel, you drawn out. I can take you to 3 artesian wells that run water just from the surface. So it's right there. It needs protecting. I mean, I believe that. But my concern is we're protecting a portion of the water versus.
So why don't we just expand what I said to just say anywhere in the zoned area, which is where an environmental study has to be produced, paid for by the developer, approved by the commission prior to installation. Anywhere in this, so that covers any environmental issue.
And includes the ban around the lake.
So yeah, it's the whole area. An environmental study is required. An independent environmental study is required.
So I think that's kind of what was alluded to earlier, that they would have to hire that, is what you'd said, according to what we put in there.
That's gonna happen, that's gonna happen in a CUP.
Right.
And it needs to happen. We know how that was handled by the developer in the wind.
And that affects the whole zoned area.
Yeah.
But there's a specific area there that even the Planning and Zoning Commission says there are areas that really it shouldn't be in.
Well, there's sensitive.
And there's biggest concern is a watershed. You can't mitigate it after the fact.
Right. It's just like the problem. I think the problem between the two positions is like on one side, I think you have the argument like there's not really facts here. There's concern, valid concern. On the other side, it's like it's too much to risk, even though we don't have good facts. Let's just say no right now and be done with it.
I go back to this.
Looks pretty old.
It is. There's updated
No,
versions.
the only difference is they've changed the names.
What is
That's the only difference. Reno County Soil Survey. It's what we all use when we look at buying a piece of ground. You know computers. Some of us know a little bit about soils.
Well, some of those things, contiguous, or the spacing between it, some of these factors, they're gonna be in a conditional. And if it came back later on for recommendation, we could put a separation. Look at Sedgwick put 2 mile separation in there so that they didn't have them continuous.
They also banned them in certain areas
They
too.
did, I get that.
Yeah.
They did
So
in
does the
development
majority
areas and that
want
kind
to
of stuff, yeah.
kick this back? No.
But we've got a motion and
I'm encouraging the majority that I'm sensing it'd be better just to deal with it now than to kick it back to them.
If we don't kick it back, then we don't have regulations underlying anything, correct?
Well, no. I mean, I'm not
The
sure.
only thing we've done is what we did here, or what will be in
We
the.
can do some more later today.
We will do. I mean, all we do to, if there was, we will do more regulations later. Unless you 4 or 5 of you just outright ban it somewhere or everywhere, there are absolutely going to be regulations. And I mean, I think I speak for all staff. No county, Reno County will have environmental regulations for CUPs when this happens, if it happens. We would never allow a CUP to go through without them proving that environmentally it was safe. That you just would never.
And all
we would never allow that.
All we're talking 4-1 vote here is to put that in there, and it's locked. They have to develop that with their regs.
Yes.
If we voted that way, so we don't have to bring that back. And it's
Which locking it in now,
foregone.
there would be benefit just locking it in now and making clear
Which
to
is
the
what
planning
your
commission.
recommendation was, correct, Mr. Hurst?
Can I have the motion read again?
Yes.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
well,
Go me to read it or you want to read
I
it?
would like Commissioner Hurst to read it. I keep writing it every time you say it.
I move that the commission send back to the planning and zoning to reconsider a prohibition on commercial utility solar systems within the designated Shinty Lake watershed area of the portion of Reno County that is zoned. That's all. I'm not looking at the whole zoned area.
And regulated.
I think,
That's part of the motion, right?
No, it wasn't part of
no,
it.
it was not part of the motion, but I thought we could handle that directly after this motion, if it passes.
Reconsider.
I think we all want regulations.
Well, that's the way I understood
It's gonna
it.
have to be mandatory if we get
If
regulations
we put this in,
anyway.
it takes 4-1 to send it back to the planning commission.
No,
To send it back to the.
No, I mean, for this addition to it, takes a super.
Two different, so Commissioner Hurst's motion is just to send it back to the planning commission, which takes 3. What's been somewhat discussed but not yet motioned is a motion to outright modify the recommendation, which would, to lock in, which by locking in requirements such as environmental studies, or the watershed, to lock that in, it doesn't
what
go
I
back,
understood.
it doesn't go back to the planning commission, but it requires 4 votes.
So if we vote that, we're done.
With that
4-1 vote.
with
we're
that
done.
issue.
With that vote, it satisfies Commissioner Hurst's thing without going back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
So with that vote, commercial solar is prohibited in the Cheney watershed, as you call it, with a 4-1 vote.
That's not the motion we have right now.
But that's
No,
not the motion.
Well,
You have-
that's why it's muddied up.
You have a motion to send it back.
my thought was we send it back to the planning commission because they have made statements that there's certain areas.
Well, I think
that's not-
today we've got to take a vote on whether to ban it or accept what they've recommended. Is that correct?
Or we can send it back.
Yeah, the third option. You could do the first 2 things or the third thing. You
Is
could
there not
ban it-
interest in the environmental study route by the majority of one?
Well, through an engineering firm, yeah, I think there would be if it goes
I
through.
don't think there's a super majority.
We've gone this route once before. And there was an economic impact study that we agreed to have done by supposedly a third party. We hired another third party to do the economic impact study. And if I remember right, depending upon who paid for it, there was $120 or $30 million difference between the impact study, even though we okayed this other company. But the problem, the difference was the company that wanted the project in paid for one, and we paid for another one.
Okay,
Am I right?
let me see if I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to strike the words prohibit in the watershed area and ask the planning commission instead to consider the requirements for environmental studies needed to protect the county environment, including our water.
So what we're saying here, if we pass as read, we're banning here.
Hang on, I had a motion. I need us to.
Oh.
To amend, is there a second?
So the motion would basically say, since we're sending it to study, since it doesn't seem like we have a supermajority to deal with this today, we're asking the planning commission to study whether, and give us specific regulation around environmental reviews necessary because I think to Commissioner Bogner's point, there could be other sensitive areas in the county that aren't being considered under this motion. So it's just saying, hey, rather than arbitrarily drawing a line around the Cheney watershed, we need a set of rules around environmental studies that include considering, the county picking who does that environmental study.
I'll never understand how we muddy it up so bad, but that's just me.
Because it's a complicated issue.
Well, it is
that people feel-
complicated, but
yeah.
the motion was pretty straightforward. But if we want to send it back to them, it takes a 4-to-1.
No.
To do
Sending it back takes 3, so that's why.
Well, I get that, but then does that null and void the other part of it we're gonna take up, whether to ban or to regulate?
Everything you're
That
talking about
follows
would be in
that.
the regulations, would be created in the regulations.
Yeah, that's kind of what my conception was.
Maybe, but
Maybe is right.
But then at that point,
Together.
we could critique it and have.
Well, yeah,
that,
it comes
just
back,
like we
it
did
comes
with-
back to you for approval.
I believe what the Plan Commission was trying to set up was just to make sure that there was not an appetite to just ban it outright. I think that's what they were trying to.
Why can't we have the motioners withdraw and we could put a new motion that says, hey, like, we want it relooked at with emphasis on environmental impact and have it come back that way, rather than like drawing lines which are not based on fact, like have them restudy the environmental, because
we know where water goes. I mean, like the lines aren't arbitrary.
Yeah, but you don't know whether that, like, whether the watershed, whether the equus beds, whether some ditch, that's what's arbitrary. It's just like we're saying, well, because it says watershed, that's what we need to protect. There's other water.
Right. Well, that watershed in particular feeds into Cheney Lake. So if a drop falls in that watershed, then it feeds into Cheney Lake. If it doesn't, then it feeds into another watershed.
I'm just saying that water is water, and you're just arbitrarily picking Cheney.
Well, I mean, those were the people that that objected, and I mean, Wichita is the largest city in Kansas.
It's just not based on fact. It's just worry.
You know, so I mean, if we're gonna take the chance, in my opinion, it'd be better to do it with a smaller group of people at risk. I mean, or we can ban it altogether, but I didn't think there was the votes to do that, and I don't think that that's necessarily a good idea.
This is a known area.
I'm not standing one way or the other, but if you're banning it because of chemicals, and I kind of agree with Daniel here that is not an absolute for us in this area because we don't have experience with it. However, what else are you going to ban that runs into that? Because every time there's a rain, chemicals run in that lake. Stuff off of fields, oil residues, you name it, it all goes there, which could be 10 times worse than what we're talking about here with a field demise. And I just said I seen a video of floating broken panels that didn't go under. And so come on.
Covered that lake.
I think there's needs to be more study on the science, and rather than like directing the science.
But I don't think that's what, I personally don't feel like that's what we're here to debate today. We're here to find out whether we send it back to them for regulation or to ban it. And if we want this particular ban in there, then let's get a 4-to-1 vote, do that, and then we'll find out whether we're gonna continue on with this. That's where I'm at with it, so we don't drag this on for 2 more weeks.
I think we're closer than we think. It's just, I think we can send it back with a focus on environmental. I don't disagree that we could get more information on the environmental impacts. I just disagree that we're smart enough to know where the impact is.
You could also, I'm sorry, I shouldn't jump in, but you could adopt the recommendation and then instruct them to do final regulations that take into account the Cheney watershed
That's the
and
process
environmental.
in which I thought we were going to do today, possibly, is after we took up issue with what the resolution was, then do the amendment to it. That would be the easiest way to do that, so we could decide what direction we're going as far as I'm concerned. Would that be something you'd be immune to or open to withdrawing motions? We go that direction, then we can revisit right after that. And give that direction to the Planning Commission. I think that would be the simplest way to take this up.
The Planning Commission keeps asking us for direction. To me, this gives direction to them.
Not really. They're gonna see it's 3-2, and then they can do whatever they want and send it back, and we're right back where we were.
Well, then we'll be here next meeting.
But I think we can do this same exact thing after we take up vote, correct? If we took up the vote to ban or to accept, and then we could move to a second motion to do what you were talking about, Mr. Hurst, to give them direction. If we got a 4-1, it's locked. In a nutshell, does that work?
Why not do this first?
Well, why do it first? Explain that to me. Because we seem to be going in circles and we're not making any progress. We need to do something, whether it's ban it or accept it, then give them direction. I don't think anybody has any problem with giving direction. I don't want it in the watershed necessarily. I thought a 3-mile perimeter around it pretty much covers that when I looked yesterday. And then some of the other areas could be addressed in this, and another emotion maybe too. These other artesian wells and things like that need to be a factor to look at. But that would at least move this along. Yes, Mr. Friesen.
I'd like to call the question. Motion to call the question.
So that means we vote on the question.
We need a second.
Anybody else have any discussion?
Do what?
Does anybody else have any discussion?
I don't.
I'll second.
I mean, I can withdraw it if we're done. It doesn't matter. We don't have to do the whole procedural where we vote on calling the question. I'll just withdraw the motion if the chair would call for a vote.
We're voting on his.
We're commissioner. Yeah, just because for clarity,
We're just
Commissioner
going
Hurst's original
around-
motion
we're
is
going
still
around
to-
and around.
Yeah.
Just don't have those that have motioned are not willing to change the motion. We've got a motion on the table.
I'm just trying to move it. Any further questions? Guess we'll take up a vote.
So to make it clear, what we're voting on right now is this ban?
Nope.
Nope,
What
that's
you're voting
what I
on,
wanted to do
the
first, because
motion,
that's the most logical.
the motion was to send it back to the Planning Commission for them to consider a ban for Cheney Lake, or for them to consider something like a ban in Cheney Lake. That was the motion. That was the
Okay,
motion.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So it would go to them. They would do, either they would do that, or they would not do that, I suppose, or they would do some third thing. Given the history of this, that seems likely. Sorry. Then it will come back to you guys again in a couple weeks, hopefully,
Okay,
or 4
okay.
weeks.
Yeah. Because
But today,
I
if we
just
do
wanted
that-
to
It'd be done
understand
today.
the question because.
And we won't take up the banning deal.
What if we just
We'll see.
said,
I think that's what we take up today, because we've been through all of this. I mean, I know there's a motion on the floor, but I totally disagree with it. That way we can either put an end to it, or we know we're gonna regulate it
what if
anyway,
we
and
just
it'll come back to
extended the
us.
moratorium and tell the planning commission to send us
And I see where
regulation?
you're going, but it's just not.
Send us regulation on solar, and maybe they'll send something back around watersheds. Like, we just asked them to do that. That way we don't have to do this, like,
Well, I mean, depending on how this motion goes, I mean, if there's 4 votes, then an additional motion could be made to
it's just a simple majority for this.
My take would be, once you have accept a motion to send it back to the Planning Commission, then you're done for the day because you voted to send it back to the Planning Commission. That would be I think it would be procedurally incorrect to take a second vote to undo what you just had done. That's just, I mean, I've never, to my knowledge, that no commission board has ever tried to do that, but I think that would be the.
What if we said, hey, instruct staff, extend the moratorium 6 months, and then instruct the planning commission to send us regulation around commercial solar in the zoned area?
Why don't we just send it back to them and let them create
Because
their.
they're gonna send it back, and then we'll do that anyways. Might as well just do it in one step. Let them do the full procedure on environmental and everything else. All they're gonna do is probably gonna not do anything.
So, if I may speak, what we was hoping to find out is whether you was gonna allow solar in the zoned area or not. And if you was, then we need to create regulations. If you're not, we don't need to create regulations. And we're not getting that answer.
Well, that's what I was hoping, is
That's
we
my
could just,
point. I
we could
want
just
that
send
answer
it
to
back saying, send
been-
us regulation on commercial solar with emphasis on environmental issues, especially the Cheney watershed.
So what you're saying is create regulations because you're not going to prohibit it in the zoned area of the county. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's
but you
kind of
have
what I
not
heard,
said
with
that as a
except,
group.
with the exception of the watershed area.
Because as a group, you have not said you're not prohibiting large-scale solar in the zoned area of the county. You've not said that yet.
Well, could we just amend the motion to just say, hey, consider banning the watershed area and develop a full set of regulations around commercial solar? And then it's just.
Well, why don't I do this? So I'll motion to amend the motion to also instruct the planning commission to create regulations for the rest of the zone area of the county when it comes to commercial solar.
I would second that amendment.
All right.
With that ban in there.
Right.
I mean, it's.
And then that would satisfy either banning or regulating.
But the ban isn't
Correct.
prescriptive because it's not a 4-to-1. It's simply a request for consideration, right?
Yes, and because you're sending it back to them, it's a little bit unusual
So
because you're sending back their. If you adopted their recommendation, then you could send it. It would go back to them anyway.
That's the way it should happen.
But yeah, you could do. Could you do what the amended motion? Yes, of course. You could send it back to them for all that, and then it would come back to you again. And I don't know where
It's going to come back.
Well, it's gonna
regardless.
it's going to come back
regardless,
regardless. Is absolutely true.
But it will come back after they've fully developed the regulations now.
It would seem possibly more efficient to do it that way, but that's not.
That'll work for me.
Yes.
So may I ask a question?
Yes.
John, you're saying to create regulations in the zoned area county other than the watershed, but you haven't banned it in the watershed?
Well, that's.
The recommendation of
That's
banning the
our
Our
watershed.
recommendation is to put a prohibition, to reconsider a prohibition on commercial use solar systems within this watershed district.
And there's 4 of you that don't agree with that?
There's 3 of them.
And to create regulations for the unzoned area.
So when it comes back, those regulations will be there.
Not necessarily. Because it's not prescriptive. It has to be 4-to-1 to do that. It's just asking them to reconsider.
That's where 4-1, if you actually voted to amend it.
There is not 4 here that want to do that.
But if it's 3-2, it goes back, and then whatever the planning commission decides comes back, and then you vote. And it's whatever you decide at that point.
I'm not trying to be obtuse, but if you adopted the recommendation, it would go back to them to make the whole zoning thing, and then it would come back to you guys anyway. And if it didn't include things like Cheney Lake that you wanted, you could add it at that time. But it just
With a 4-to-1 vote?
with the 4-to-1 vote.
I have all kinds of great motions, but there's a stinking motion on the table for the last 30 minutes.
I felt like
We
I was
need to
hanging in there
vote
for
on
the
it.
first hour, but
So.
Well, we should probably vote on the motion to amend.
Yep. With the addition of to create regulations for the unzoned area of the county, right?
The zoned area of the county.
I mean zone, excuse
Yeah.
me.
don't add that.
Yeah, not them.
Yeah.
We know we got no out of that.
Yeah.
Just
Do we have it now?
read back.
Read it back and let's.
So the, the amended, we're voting whether or not to accept the amendment to the motion to instruct the planning commission to write the regulations for the rest of the zone portion of the county.
And prohibit in watershed.
Well, it's a recommendation. The original motion was a recommendation to prohibit the watershed, and now he's adding also make recommendation the rest of the regs
At the same time.
at the same time. So
And that'll settle it.
Can we all just say that's a friendly amendment and just vote on
Yes.
one? Chair, can we just say,
Yes.
I think everybody's agreeing.
That's a broad sweeping,
We
yeah.
just say that's
think
the
you can
motion
get
now.
vote there,
Everybody's
yeah.
okay.
I do.
One motion.
Yep.
Got it?
Everybody, yep.
Is everybody in agreement on what the motion is now?
Instruct. And if it comes back, it can't be taken back up for a vote then at that point, correct?
Well, because I don't know, because of the way it's coming back, it'll come back and be for a simple majority to accept the recommendation they send you or deny it. because that's the way it works when you send it back and it comes
But you
back. a
never
second
know
time.
what's coming back.
Yeah, we don't know what's coming back.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
then make adjustments to it after that.
You could, so,
Yeah.
no, when it comes back, you can accept it by a simple majority, or you can, yeah, I guess could you amend it by full super majority at that point? That's
Yeah.
extra funky.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, you definitely can by
But
super
you
majority.
can't go back and ban it at that point.
So
I think you
so
could.
the motion is
I think
to
you could if it came back the second time. You could ban it by simple majority because it's boomeranging.
That's
When
why I
it
asked
comes
this
back the
question,
second
because I
time.
know where it's
So-
leading.
So
That is true.
that's true. So when it comes back, everything's
If
on
you
the.
guys are good with it.
Basically, when it comes back, everything's on the table. I want to make that clear. When it comes back, pretty much everything's on the table.
So the motion is to send a recommendation back to Planning Commission to ban commercial solar within the Cheney watershed, and at the same time send us a full set of regulations on the other areas.
Within the Cheney watershed in the zoned area. Did you say that?
We're only talking about the zoned area.
He wants the whole regs.
Well, I know,
for
but I
everything.
didn't hear that, and I knew what he meant.
Yeah.
But it is going to them as a request that they can.
Yeah, they can throw it in the trash if they want. Send us whatever they want.
I think, Patrick, on that resolution, it also needs that watershed will be defined by section lines closest to the
Well,
watershed.
you guys figure that out.
Well, it has to be part of the resolution.
Commissioner Hurst, I think it was your motion originally. Does your motion, when you say Chain Lake in your motion, does it include the map that Don has given you? That would help staff a
That's
lot.
sufficient for me.
Okay. The reason that matters is because if we don't have an objective definition of the map, then it gets really complicated. Different people, I don't want to come in, I personally don't want to be arguing someday about what the Chain Lake watershed is.
And I tried to actually find out if we had an actually description, and I think there is one, but I didn't have near enough time to research where it was, but
I already have it
that's
drawn out, so.
a legal description I'm talking, however the planning zoning wants to do it.
Well, and if we've got a
Bring it
fourth
to
vote,
us.
we could.
Bring it to us.
All right, are we clear?
Yes.
All right. Any further comments or objections? Roll call
On the amendment.
on the amendment.
No.
No. We
But it's
accepted-
also on,
Friendly amendment.
We accepted the amendment.
Oh, we accepted that,
Yeah.
okay, never mind.
Roll call on your motion as
Yeah.
amended.
Okay. Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
yes?
Commissioner Weitzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Yay.
Woo! Okay, we did something.
I have to
7F. Huh? You gotta run? Well, I don't think these are gonna take.
Well, or table it. I had written, and for some reason I thought this wouldn't be a heavy agenda. It's a resolution I wrote about consent agendas, and it
go. Why don't we
incorporates.
just do it next meeting?
Okay, that's fine with me. Well, it's up to you guys. It's your meeting.
Move to,
I mean, it looked good to me.
move
Why
the
don't we-
table to the next meeting.
You wanna table the rest of it till next?
That'd be great.
Is there no time sensitive stuff, is there?
Yeah, tax credits would probably be.
That's what I
Tax
thought that
credits,
one
yeah.
probably ought to be talked about. We could do the others. Bid on tax credits for courthouse.
Motion to approve 7G as recommended.
Second.
You got a motion and a second? Further discussion?
There's not a recommendation.
Roll call? Yeah, I know.
Just a second.
Patrick, make the motion.
Well, it kind of, Randy,
I'll
what is it,
explain it.
Randy?
We don't need an explanation, just make the motion.
Well, I did not make a recommendation on this one because the lowest is, lowest bid, or the best bid is Fallbrook tax credits. Their agreement is they will then find, they're like a third party, they're gonna then find a buyer.
Yeah.
We would sell it and wouldn't sell it until they have a buyer. It'd be to the buyer that we would sell it to. It's about $60 better than Union State Bank, which is in Kansas.
Let's just do that one. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Yeah.
All right, John.
Keep the business at home, some third party's gonna.
So,
Exception,
Except
option
Union
two.
State Bank.
it was on the screen here, it disappeared.
You should have made that recommendation. Make our job a little easier. $60 for any.
We need roll call. I know you're minute and over there, sorry.
Commissioner Hurst.
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Weitzel. Commissioner Bogner.
Yes.
Okay, and we will table the rest of them items till next time.
I want to say something.
Second.
Staff is evaluating an AI product that can make motions that can take minutes, and I am not sure if it's Reno County ready.
Are we tabling monthly reports, or are you giving us some? Let's have them.
Well, the monthly reports, yeah, it's just, if you
I gotta
have any
have some
questions,
signatures for it.
it's
Did you already get out of
aging,
here?
public transit, appraiser, automotive clerk, community corrections, communications, DA, and emergency management. If you don't have any questions, my only other comment or report was, I think all of you got a letter from the mayor of Arlington, the EMS building. I think I put it in one of my weekly reports, but at the next meeting, I'll bring back a addendum to the agreement with the hospital for the ARPA funds that were, so that the $260,000 we already had earmarked for Arlington EMS, add what was going to be going for the Fifth Avenue EMS, which is I think $220,000, plus maybe $100,000 in the from a different part of the ARPA funds, to put it all with the Arlington EMS, which would bring it up just under $600,000, would cover a majority of the cost. But the Arlington EMS station is still in progress. But after that agreement, it'll go back to the hospital, and the hospital, once they approve it, they will move forward with the building prospect or project. So I was just going to bring that up.
So that means you can start demolition prior to.
It's up to the hospital at that point, yeah.
Well, I think we need to have a conversation and find out what that ambulance area is gonna cost before we get too carried away, because if they're gonna come up with 800 or 900,000, we need to have a say in what we're gonna do. We've talked about that already.
And the agreement says that the county commission has to approve any project or cost before they actually build it or put it up. So that will take place, but this basically it moves all the ARPA money that we have remaining that hasn't been fully allocated to be allocated before the end of this year, and will be constructed next year. That's all I had.
Okay, that it? You got anything, Mr. Watson?
Nope, nothing for me.
Mr. Hurst?
You probably received an email from NACO regarding Operation Green Light. I'd like that to be consideration, and that's the honoring by putting some green lights in to honor the veterans. I'd like to be consideration for that being done here for the week of November 4th through 11th. I will be gone on October 16th for the K-96 corridor meeting at the chamber, and so just wanted to inform you that Randy probably will be there, so somebody needs to be there. We've had a lot of discussion here, but I think lots of positive results and forward thinking has resulted from this ARPA funds for the whole county. And a thank you to all the community leaders and businesses throughout the county that worked lots of hours to make these programs work like they were supposed to work. So I just can thank everybody for doing that.
I don't have anything. You have anything? No. Well, if not, that's cause for adjournment. We're done. Don't run off till you sign these things, though.